The heaven-smiting devil Emperor's slate rests in Xianxia's hands, and Xiao Lingxi's heart trembles at the sight. A forgotten past stirs beneath sealed memories and buried truths. Leave a like and subscribe to follow where this revelation leads. It was one of those things he had either inadvertently overlooked or never minded in the past. Maybe that was why it felt especially shocking after Kai Wao had dredged it to the surface. No matter how carefully he examined his memories, he realized that Xia Qingyu hadn't visited Xia Hongyi even once after she entered Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace at 16 years old. It wasn't like she had never had the chance to step out of her sect. On the contrary, she was considered a special existence in Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace, and she was granted quite an unusual amount of freedom as a result. In fact, she had participated in the Blue Wind ranking tournament and his wedding to Kang Yue. And yet he couldn't remember a single moment where she had spoken to her father or kept him company. The entire reason she started cultivating in the first place was to search for her lost family. So why was she so cold and detached toward her own father? Did the deception stretch all the way to the beginning? Was her reason to pursue cultivation with all her might itself a lie? See, you think that it's bizarre too, right? Kai Wao said while watching Xianxia's expression closely. It doesn't matter now. All this means is that she was faking from the very beginning. Xianxia forcefully nipped the thought in the bud before asking, "Did you read Uncle Xia's memories just now?" Kai Wao's eyes curled into crescents. "I knew I wouldn't be able to hide it from you." With Kai Wao's devilish soul, it was all too easy for her to read a lower realm mortal's memories while leaving almost no trace behind at all. The reason she had read Xia Hongyi's memories in secret was to verify her suspicions that Xia Qingyu wasn't Xia Hongyi's real daughter. There were countless reasons as to how that might come to be, but the simplest explanation would be that Yue Wugu was already pregnant when Xia Hongyi found her. After they fell in love, Xia Hongyi tried to hide it from Xia Qingyu only to be found out later. That would explain everything. That would absolve her of her doubts once and for all. Unfortunately, the results were extremely disappointing. In Xia Hongyi's memories, Yue Wugu, she was Dong Zhu to him, was a virgin when they consummated their love. This meant that Xia Qingyu was definitely Yue Wugu and Xia Hongyi's daughter, which brought her back to square one. There was another strange thing about his memories. Although Xia Hongyi had been separated from Dong Zhu, Yue Wugu, for 30-some years, his memories of her were crystal clear and profound. However, his memories of his daughter, Xia Qingyu, were strangely simple, sparse, and blurry. His memories of Xia Yuanba showed similar characteristics as well, but it wasn't nearly as bad as his memories of Xia Qingyu. Finally, she had a distinct sense that something was wrong with Xia Hongyi's memories. Kai Wao was unquestionably the woman with the strongest soul energy in the current universe, thanks to her Nirvana Devil Emperor soul. However, she still wasn't able to identify the source of this wrongness. You normally never resort to such methods unless the matter is of critical importance. Is this a matter of critical importance? Xianxia chided in a helpless tone. Kai Wao really was acting a bit too obsessed right now. Your Majesty is correct. This queen admits and apologizes for her errors. Kai Wao acted like a scolded child, but the mischief in her eyes and the sudden silkiness in her devilish voice were anything but childish. If your Majesty must punish this queen, would you like me and Xunian to service you together sometime in the future? Xianxia immediately turned toward her with widened, bloodshot eyes. You said it. You better keep your promise. Hee. Kai Wao giggled cutely and seductively. Don't worry, your Majesty. I know at least a couple hundred ways to make little Xunian submit. For starters, she's weak too. Suddenly, the teleportation formation in front of the Black Moon Merchant Guild flashed, and a couple walked out from the center. Kai Wao immediately stopped talking. Annoyed by the interruption, Xianxia glared at the uninvited guests who happened to be familiar faces. The man at the left was Zai Jai, Lord of Black Moon. The woman to the right was Fengyi, former sovereign of the seas of Supreme Ocean Palace. When Zai Jai saw Xianxia, a look of surprise crossed his features before he slowly dropped to his knees. Zai Jai greets Spiritual Master Yun. I, Black Moon, am infinitely honored to bask in the Spiritual Master's presence. It had been many years since they saw each other. Zai Jai was still wearing his signature purple robes, but he actually looked younger than he was before. The old darkness and sharpness in his intelligent eyes had also been replaced by unusual peace and tranquility. As for Fengyi had knelt at the same time as Zai Jai, but she quickly raised her head slightly to sneak a peek at Xianxia. Her eyes contained awe and curiosity, but no fear whatsoever. The dignity she had carried as a sovereign of the seas was also completely missing. Noticing Yun Qi's surprise, Zai Jai said, "As you may have noticed, my wife is no longer the sovereign of the seas she used to be. She has sealed her memories after she recovered, and with it all of the honor and disgrace, sorrow and joy, favors and grievances, rights and wrongs of the past." "I see," Yun Qi responded indifferently. Fengyi bowed deeply before saying, "I may not have my past memories, but my husband has told me of your forgiveness and rescue. I will never forget this favor for as long as I live." As she said this, she leaned into Zai Jai as if it was the most natural thing in the world. It was the kind of intimacy and dependence that came from the bottom of one's heart. Zai Jai shot his wife a look so loving and gentle that it was almost visible to the naked eye. "I never would have thought that these years would be the happiest and most peaceful days of our lives, but they were. I have never seen my wife this carefree and free from worry. I love every facet of her current self, be it good or bad. I love them so much that I actually don't want to return to the past anymore. What Supreme Ocean Palace? What Black Moon Merchant Guild? To think that I only realize now that their futures and belonging to them don't matter as much as I thought." Zai Jai's smile was light and at ease. "Sometimes I look back to the past and rue my foolishness, to think that I had toiled for half my life without realizing that what I wanted was really this simple." Yun Qi nodded. "I am glad you both have found true happiness. It is a bit of a shame that this is where both your legends have ended, though." "Ha ha ha ha," Zai Jai chuckled a little. "All legends ceased to exist since the moment you ascended, spiritual Master Yun. There used to be 4 sacred grounds on the profound sky continent. Sun Moon Divine Hall and Mighty Heavenly Sword region had been destroyed. Absolute Monarch Sanctuary had come under Xia Yuanba's control, and Supreme Ocean Palace had entered a state of half-seclusion. It probably wouldn't take long before the Absolute Monarch Sanctuary, Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace, and Divine Phoenix Sect became the only sacred grounds left on this continent. "It is a bit of a sad ending, isn't it?" Kai Waya whispered after the Black Moon Merchant Guild was behind them. "Not really, but it does make you think about some things," Yun Qi said. "Some people, actually a lot of people, never know what they really want until they die." "In that case, what do you think Xia Qingyu really wants?" Kai Waya asked. Half given up at this point, Yun Qi could only roll his eyes at her. "How long do you plan to stay on the Blue Pole Star?" Kai Waya finally stopped teasing him and asked a less abstract question. Yun Qi replied without hesitation. "A very long time. Xuanian, Meiyin, and Keijai will be coming soon, and now that I think about it, I should invite the witches as well. Even if it's just for tradition's sake, they have the right to meet my parents." He then put a finger on the tip of his nose and revealed his true thoughts. "Sai, I just don't understand why Wuxin wants to see them so much. You would almost think that this is her birthday gift or something." A meaningful smile crossed Kai Wao's lips. "What about the Blue Dragon Emperor and Kang Xiu? The entire universe knows them as your official consorts, you know. Shouldn't you bring them to meet your parents too?" "Is that a joke?" When Yun Qi looked at Kai Wao and realized she was actually serious, he said, "Forget it." Kai Wao persuaded, "Just because it is a loveless status doesn't mean that it isn't worth maintaining. Moreover, the Blue Dragon Emperor is key to the stability of the Western Divine Region, and Kang Xiu the Southern Divine Region. This is especially true in the case of Kang Xiu. Mistreating her may turn Kang Shishin from a loyal dog into a vile one." "So what?" Yun Qi sneered. "When that day comes, I'll just squash him like the dog he is." "Sure you can, but it's not easy to train up another dog who's as loyal and useful as him," Kai Wao complained with a worried expression. It actually looked like she was planning a contingency for that possibility already. "Fine, fine." Yun Qi didn't want to add more burdens to Kai Wao, so he surrendered and said, "I'm still not going to bring them to meet my parents, but I promise to visit them from time to time. Wuxin was asking me to take her to the God realm anyway. I'll make the trip when we're exploring the Southern Divine Region and Western Divine Region." "My dear Majesty," Kai Wao exhaled a warm breath against his cheek. "I think I want to etch the word half-hearted into your face. This way everyone will know your attitude toward governing from the get-go." "I'm going to visit Kei now." Yun Qi attempted to escape. "Kei, you mean that cute and delicate little jade doll called the Little Demon Empress?" Kai Wao raised her eyebrows. "I'm surprised. Every one of your wives and lovers only wish that they can melt into your skin and stay with you forever, but you're going to pamper her only." Yun Qi explained seriously. "Kei may look that way, but she's really a violent and stubborn girl. She must have built up a lot of frustration after missing me for so many years, and she couldn't exactly beat the crap out of me in front of Wuxin and the elders. If I don't head over soon, I'm afraid that the stress will actually get to her. Oh, frustration, is it? Kai Waiao shot him a look that was both charming and disapproving at the same time. You really should get that all out of her. Otherwise, the servants are going to complain about broken beds and whatnot. See you later. Not giving Kai Waiao another chance to make fun of him, Yun-Chi cut open a spatial rift and teleported straight to the little demon empress side. A long time after Yun-Chi left, the empress finally let out a quiet sigh. Do you really think I'm immune to jealousy, you sinful man? After she recollected herself, Kai Waiao released her spiritual perception until it stopped at a frozen land. It was where Xia Qingyu used to cultivate. It was where her former master, Chu Yueli, was staying. Her conversation with Chu Yuechen last night and her meeting with Xia Hongyi today had actually worsened her doubts instead of alleviating them. And with that came a sense of unease that she couldn't describe. To the north of Blue Wind Nation, the snow region of extreme ice, frozen cloud immortal palace. Thank you for telling me all this. As expected, the information she got from Chu Yueli wasn't that much different from Chu Yuechen's. She did have a different request, though. I would like to visit Xia Qingyu's old room and cultivation grounds. However, Chu Yueli shook her head and said, that won't be possible. Why is that? Chu Yueli faced toward the ice buildings of Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace and said, the Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace you're currently seeing isn't the original Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace. The original was completely destroyed by the battle between Xuanyu and Wenchen and the little demon empress, leaving little to no trace behind. 1. This new Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace was rebuilt after Xuanyu and Wenchen was destroyed with the help of Palace Master Yun. Naturally, you won't find Qingyu's room or cultivation grounds here. Little to no trace, huh? Kai Waiao muttered to herself before asking, what about a possession then? Did she really leave nothing behind at all? Chu Yueli nodded with a lonely expression on her face. That is a true shame, Kai Waiao muttered to herself again. Some time later, Kai Waiao returned to Floating Cloud City. But instead of dropping by the Xiao clan, she traveled to a long empty courtyard instead. It was the birthplace of Xia Qingyu and Xia Yuanba, the residents of the Xia family. This place was left mostly empty since Xia Hongyi had moved to the Black Moon Merchant Guild. It was only guarded by 1 or 2 middle-aged servants who had followed Xia Hongyi since the early days. An idle servant was given the shock of his life when Kai Waiao appeared seemingly out of nowhere from the sky. He cried out, "Who are?" His voice suddenly became caught in his throat. Then his expression faded into dumb blankness as well. Kai Waiao scanned the surroundings while walking toward the servant. She asked, "Tell me which room was Xia Qingyu's bedroom?" The servant dumbly raised his hand and pointed at the innermost bedroom. The Empress' figure blurred, and she appeared inside the room without ever touching the door. There was a high-quality oaken bed with a dark purple see-through curtain hanging above it. There were tables and chairs that were made of the same wood, a bronze mirror for grooming purposes, and a firmly shut cabinet. It was empty. That was everything. There were no clothes, no cleaning tools, no tea sets, no jewelry, no cosmetics, nothing. She couldn't even find a trace of someone having lived here. She had stolen the servant's soul, so there was no chance he could be lying to her. This was definitely Xia Qingyu's bedroom for 16 years until she left. Did Xia Qingyu really take everything with her after she went away? Kai Waiao left the Xia family courtyard and floated high up in the sky where she couldn't be seen. There, she stayed silent for a very long time. She hadn't left anything behind at her birthplace. She hadn't left anything behind at the original Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace either, because it was destroyed by the little demon empress and Xuanyu and Wenchen's battle. The moon god realm was literally cosmic dust right now. To think that the deceased Xia Qingyu would leave no traces behind in this world whatsoever. Assuming that the memories of her were wiped, then she might as well not have existed in the first place. I give up. A long time later, Kai Waiao finally let out a powerless whisper. She's dead. Everything is as good as it can be. There is no need to look into something so meaningless. The mystery that only seemed to deepen with every attempt to uncover it, the vague unease that seemed to nestle uncomfortably in her heart. She gave up. 1. Frozen Cloud Immortal Palace was destroyed in Chapter 845, swaying chaotic flames. It is also a foreshadowing I left behind back then. Kai Waiao might be wearing the title of Empress, but she really was bearing the responsibilities of an emperor. As a result, She had had to return to the God realm just 2 months after her stay on Blue Pole Star. She also dragged an unwilling Kyanai Yinger with her. After all, now was the time the Brahma Monarch realm needed Kyanai Yinger the most. Xianxia had stayed behind on Blue Pole Star as a matter of course and spent every day traveling back and forth between the profound sky continent and illusory demon realm. Sometimes he would travel to the dark space beneath Cloud's End Cliff on the Azure Cloud continent and reminisce about the heretic god's painful, hopeless choice with Ur. If the heretic god hadn't left behind his inheritances, if the heaven-smiting devil emperor hadn't chosen to sacrifice herself and her devils, the primal chaos would have been embroiled in the opposite of the current peace. If only they could be happy as well. Now that the universe was at peace, Xianxia had been treating Hunger and Ur better than ever before. Ur was naturally quiet and obedient, so it didn't take much effort to keep her happy. Hunger was weird and energetic, but he indulged her wishes no matter how weird, excessive, or unreasonable they might be. Hunger's biggest hobby was to eat, and her food choice was bizarre to say the least. Even more bizarre was the fact that she hadn't grown a gram fatter or a day older since the day he got her. Another 2 months passed, and still Xianxia almost never left the Blue Pole Star. Most God Realm profound practitioners disdained staying in the lower realms for long, but Xianxia lived every day to the fullest, as if he was trying to make up for all the time he had lost during those painful years. From time to time, Kai Waya would send him a sound transmission and request his wisdom in various important matters. But Xianxia always replied that she should just use her best judgment. Of course, Kai Waya had predicted this would happen, but just because his response was predictable didn't mean that it was right to skip the process. For one, it was the respect Emperor Yun deserved, and two, she didn't want him to forget that he was still the great emperor of the God realm. Divine Phoenix Empire, Phoenix Perching Valley. The name Phoenix Perching Valley was known throughout the profound sky continent because it was the cultivation ground and meditation space of the Phoenix goddess herself. In the eyes of the profound practitioners, especially those who hailed from the divine Phoenix Empire, it was a holy land that could be worshipped from afar but never approached. Today, a young woman had descended upon the supposedly unapproachable holy land. Yun Wuxin was now a fully grown woman. Her countenance was peerless, her skin was like the first snow, and her form looked like it was sculpted from white jade. Her every expression was as picturesque as art itself. She wore a plain but elegant white dress with long sleeves. A simple belt outlined the thinness of her waist and the fullness of her chest. The eternal crimson clouds hanging in the sky and the warm breeze brushing against the green grass of the Phoenix Perching Valley gave the young woman the appearance of an otherworldly immortal. It was impossible to tell if it was the picturesque scenery of the land that accentuated her peerless beauty or the other way around. Yun Wuxin came here once every month to consult her master, Feng Zhuo, regarding the cultivation of the world ode of the Phoenix. However, she noticed that something was amiss the moment she arrived. Fire was normally a violent and agitable element, but today it was so silent it was almost as if it was afraid of something. "Is father here?" Yun Wuxin whispered to herself and tried to pinpoint her father's aura to no avail. It was probably because it was hidden behind a barrier. She didn't have to walk far when her father and her master's auras suddenly appeared within her spiritual perception. As she guessed, a barrier had concealed her auras. What she didn't guess was that the barrier also concealed a certain noise that froze her in her tracks instantly. "Wu, Wuxin is here? We can deal with her later. Why do you have such difficult knots on your clothes? I'm just going to rip them apart." "No, that's Sister Kangyu's, Un." This wasn't the first time she ran into something like this. In fact, she had almost gotten used to it. Almost. Her cheeks turned as rosy as an apple as she escaped in the opposite direction. "For crying out loud!" Yun Wuxin stomped her foot in annoyance after she had escaped the area. She was annoyed that her father's debaucherous nature hadn't changed in the slightest, and that her master, the so-called Phoenix goddess, just accepted his advances no matter how unreasonable they might be. Suddenly, the space in front of her blurred unnaturally. The next moment, she found herself staring at two girls. The girl to her left wore a black shirt and skirt that matched her black hair and pupils perfectly. Her countenance was so otherworldly that it felt like she didn't belong to this murky mortal coil. When she smiled, her eyes felt like a pair of infinite nights that could drown all the souls in the world for eternity. The delicate girl to her right looked even younger. Her complexion was as milky as white jade, and she wore rainbow-colored robes that somehow reminded her of the infinite stars in the sky. Unlike the smiling, black-dressed girl beside her, though, she emanated a proud, lofty aura that didn't fit her appearance at all. She looked so cute that anyone who set their eyes on her would want to hold her tight, and yet her presence sang the complete opposite. Yun Wuxin didn't know how long she was lost in their appearance. However, she immediately got a hold of herself after she came back down to earth. Kai! She was going to address them as children when she scanned with her spiritual perception and found only a pair of infinite abysses. She quickly cut herself off before continuing in a calm and collected manner. This is the forbidden ground of the Divine Phoenix sect, and you are not one of our members. I must request that you move elsewhere. The girl in black dress tilted her head a little, eyebrows curling into a pair of exquisite crescents. You are Wuxin? No wonder Big Brother Yun Qi always praises your looks. I bet that Sister Yuechen is super gorgeous as well. The girl in the rainbow dress snorted. HMPH, if there is one thing he is good at, it will be his eye for women. Yun Wuxin's lips parted when she suddenly recalled something. Are you, Meiyin, Keijai? Yun Qi's excited voice reached all three of them. There was a gust of wind, and the next moment he and a disheveled, red-faced Feng Zuer were standing next to Wuxin. Hee, Shui Meiyin said with a smirk on her face. It looks like we've arrived at an inconvenient time. Keijai turned her face away a little. Feng Zuer grew even redder, and consequently prettier than before, but she held in her embarrassment and bowed her head politely at Shui Meiyin and Keijai. Then she asked Yun Qi softly, Will you introduce us? She already knew who they were from Yun Qi's cry, but formal introductions were still necessary since this was their first meeting. My Meiyin, my Keijai, Yun Qi said smilingly and simply. There was nothing to be added because he had already described in excruciating detail each and every one of his lovers, consorts, and concubines in the god realm before. My Zuer, my Wuxin, he added after motioning at the duo. Yun Wuxin took a step forward, saluted Keijai and Meiyin, and greeted them hurriedly. Wuxin greets Auntie Meiyin and Auntie Keijai. Please forgive Wuxin for her earlier rudeness. She had been curious about her father's consorts and concubines for a while now, and the woman who saved the fates of her father and everyone else on the Blue Pole Star even more so. She had felt a deep sense of gratitude and admiration toward Meiyin ever since she had heard of her deeds, so she could barely control her excitement now that her idol was standing right in front of her. Good girl, Shui Meiyin beamed at Wuxin before looking at Zuer next. Big Brother Yun Qi said that you're the prettiest woman on this planet, and it looks like he wasn't exaggerating at all, Sister Zuer, although this isn't actually the first time I've seen you. Eh? Feng Zuer looked confused. You have when? It was, Shui Meiyin took a second to remember. 9 years ago when I was still 15 years old, hee. She then shot Yun Qi a meaningful smile and blinked slowly and deliberately. 9 years ago. Feng Zuer grew even more confused. Yun Qi was still in the god realm at the time, and she was certain that this was the first time she had met Shui Meiyin. Her appearance and presence were, to put it simply, unforgettable. Ahem. Yun Qi let out a series of obviously fake coughs before saying, It's not important. Wuxin, you've always wanted to speak with your Auntie Meiyin, right? Well, this is the perfect time for you to join her and, meet your other aunties. The fact that Shui Meiyin was here meant that the Eye of the Formation in the God realm had been fully constructed. Not done yet, he grabbed Keijai's hand and said, Come, Keijai, I want to show you something. Illusory Demon Realm, Demon Imperial City. Where are you taking me? Yun Qi had flown with Keijai all the way from profound sky continent to Illusory Demon Realm. You'll know very soon, Yun Qi replied with a bright smile on his face. The Yun clan where he was born was right in front of them, but he took her to the mountains at the back of the residence instead. Keijai was about to ask again when she suddenly sensed something and froze in her tracks. Yun Qi stopped beside her as well. A mix of complicated emotions slowly clouded her trembling, starry eyes. Below them was a sizable herb garden filled with countless plants. It was a peaceful and tranquil environment filled with the scent of flowers and herbs. There was an old man inside the garden. It had only been a decade or so since Yun Gu came to the illusory demon realm, but he was growing more and more famous as a peerless and kind-hearted doctor. He was treated with great respect even by the members of the illusory demon imperial family and the 12 guardian families. Despite his growing fame, Yun Gu still gathered his herbs in person. Today, though, he was accompanied by an extraordinarily handsome and awe-inspiring middle-aged man instead of the usual Su Linger. If there was a God Realm profound practitioner here right now, they would have dropped to their knees in shock already. It was because he was Xing Jukong, the former star god emperor himself. You should only harvest 7/10 of this leaf. To do so, you wrap it in a small amount of profound energy and deposit it within the cold jade in 2 breaths. This herb looks like it's flourishing, but it's really been corrupted and should be abandoned. This herb is called Xiang Wanderer, and its shape and presence are nearly identical to the herb called the Bleeding Heart Boat Grass. If either herb is mistaken for the other, they can potentially kill a patient in the worst-case scenario. This is why we must commit every form, characteristic, and aura of an herb to memory. It is the root of all doctoring. Yun Gu was patiently teaching the former star god emperor the art of doctoring. Yun Qi knew better than anyone that he was the greatest doctor and best master in the entire world. Xing Jukong's back was half-bent in a posture of humility and respect. He never failed to nod his head seriously and respectfully at the end of Yun Gu's every sentence. Keijai watched the scene unfold silently and motionlessly. I've wiped away all of his memories. Still holding onto Keijai's hand, Yun Qi said softly, he no longer has a past, a power, or a name, not his old name at least. He was named Yun Kong after he accepted Master Yun Gu's surname as his own. Master Yun Gu cannot take him in as a disciple, but he allows him to learn and perform the art of doctoring by his side. It has only been 3 months since he started, but he's progressed quickly even though he no longer possesses his past memories. It's probably because of his supernatural intuition as a former peak divine master. Sometimes, he has even revealed insights that greatly helped Master Yun Gu's own understanding. In the beginning, Master Yun Gu only took him in because I asked him to. Now though he has grown increasingly willing to teach him, I'm sure it won't be too long before a new famous doctor is born in the illusory demon realm. Yun Qi hated Xing Jukong to the bone. However, he was Jasmine and Keijai's natural father. No matter how much he hated him, he couldn't take his life. He didn't even dare to hand him off to Keijai because he knew that her hatred probably exceeded even his. It was entirely possible she might execute him at the mere sight of him. He couldn't let Keijai be shackled by the sin of patricide, just like he couldn't let Kaianai Yinger kill Kaianai Fanshan back then. In the end, this was the final solution he had arrived at. He had wiped away all of the former star god emperor's memories and made it so that he would heal sick patients with his sinful hands. He would be atoning for his sins until the day he naturally died. This was the best ending Yun Qi could think of for Keijai. A long time later, Keijai's lips finally parted to let out a trembling voice. Do you think that he deserves this? Yun Qi pulled her into his arms and replied, for me at least he does. His sin may be immeasurably huge, but he looked down and watched Keijai's face lovingly. Without him, I would never have encountered Jasmine. I would not be able to hold you right now. For this, at least, I am eternally grateful. She put up a token struggle before leaning against his chest completely. She sobbed as tears crept into her eyes. Mother, auntie, big brother, big sister, they are all. How does this evil man get an ending like this while they are? Why, just why? Yun Qi closed his eyes and tightened his arms. He let Keijai cry to her heart's content. Despite the growing wetness on his chest, he couldn't stop himself from letting out a long sigh of relief in his mind. He knew it wasn't enough, but he hoped that this episode would be the start of Keijai's return to the carefree and happy little Jasmine she used to be. Step by step, little by little. 1. Where would you like to set the eye of the formation here, big brother Yun Qi? Shui Meiyan asked. Yun Qi thought for a moment before answering. I think it would be best to place it in Xiao clan. In fact, let's place it right here in this courtyard. 1. Although the illusory demon Yun family was where he was born, he was ultimately attached to the Xiao clan of Floating Cloud City in a special, irreplaceable way. After all, it was where he grew up, where his fate was changed forever, and where he met Jasmine for the first time. Eye of the formation? Yun Wuxin shot her father an inquiring glance. It's the eye of a dimensional teleportation formation, to be exact. Yun Qi answered his daughter smilingly. The other teleportation formation is set in my city in the God Realm, Emperor Yun City. When the construction is complete, you may travel to and from the God Realm whenever you wish. Yun Wuxin's lips parted a little. It was because she was stunned by the magnitude of the construction. Yun Qi had told her that the spatial laws of the God Realm were much stronger than the ones governing the lower realms. It was incredibly difficult to traverse or destroy the fabric of space of the God Realm. One of his given examples was the great dimensional formation that connected the eternal heaven God Realm and the edge of the primal chaos. It had taken the manpower and resources of multiple king realms to complete, and it was literally the biggest space-traversing project ever undertaken in the history of the God realm. The soon-to-be-completed profound spatial formation that connects Blue Pole Star to the God realm was on a much smaller scale than that great dimensional formation, but she recognized that it was still on a scale that was beyond her ability to comprehend. It connects directly to Father's Emperor Yun City. Yun Wuxin's eyes shimmered. A profound spatial formation can't be mundane even for the God realm, right? Of course not, Yun Qi replied. Even if we discount the resources that are involved, your Auntie Meiyin is the only person in the entire cosmos who can complete a profound spatial formation like this in such a short time. Auntie Meiyin is amazing, Yun Wuxin praised from the bottom of her heart. Hee, Shui Meiyin brushed her fingers against the world piercer, and ripples of crimson energy trailed after her movement. I shall begin my work then. The space here is too fragile though, so I will have to strengthen it before laying down the eye of the formation. It will take around 10 days to complete everything. Oh right, Shui Meiyin suddenly recalled something and extended a hand. Sitting on her snow-white palm were 3 bright crimson jades. This is for you, big brother Yun Qi. The unique crimson glow was a dead giveaway. They clearly contained the spatial divine power of the world piercer. Yun Qi accepted the gift and exhaled bits of profound energy to figure out how to use it. Then he asked in a surprised voice, "Did you create them using the world piercer?" "Amen." Shui Meiyin nodded before continuing in a melodious voice. "The world piercer will never regain its former glory. Therefore, it cannot create a void illusion stone anymore. However, the world piercer has been able to regenerate some divine energy during the past couple of months of peace, and I decided to create these world jades with them. All you need to do is to inject it with profound energy, and they'll teleport you to the destination no matter how far away you are from it. It is inferior to the void illusion stone in that it is not perfectly untraceable, but..." Shui Meiyin's eyebrows curled into crescents. "The trail it leaves behind is still nearly undetectable, and it only takes a maximum of 2 breaths to complete the teleportation. Most importantly, it doesn't teleport you to a random, unknown location. I promise you that they are better than all the void illusion stones that remain in the current universe." "But where do they teleport you to?" Yun Qi realized the answer even as he voiced the question. "Could it be Emperor Yun City?" "But of course," Shui Meiyin giggled again. "Just crush it, and you will be teleported to Emperor Yun City even if you are inside the God realm of absolute beginning." It should have been impossible to teleport between the God realm of absolute beginning and the God realm. Before the world piercer appeared, not even the so-called greatest spatial profound artifact at the time, the Great Void Cauldron, could pull off such a feat. Yun Qi clenched his fingers a little. If Yun Wuxin wasn't right here, he would have pushed Shui Meiyin down and kissed her for a very long time. As the great emperor, there was nothing left in the primal chaos that could threaten him anymore. However, that didn't mean that he had no use for the world jades. It was because the world jades were meant for his loved ones. He had afforded them the best possible protection in the entire universe. There was no such thing as too much. Even if the worst-case scenario, even if the chance of it happening was smaller than a speck of dust, were to occur, his loved ones would still be able to escape the danger. Shui Meiyin knew exactly where Yun Qi's greatest worries lay. That was why she created these spatial divine stones she named World Jades, for him even though they cost the incredibly precious energy of the World Piercer. The owners of the Jades might never have to use them, but their existence would permanently eliminate the last vestiges of worry in Yun Qi's heart. 3 is all I can create, though. You will have to decide who gets to have them, big brother Yun Qi. Shui Meiyin winked meaningfully at Yun Qi before twisting her delicate waist and waving the World Piercer. A thin sheet of crimson light immediately expanded from the heavenly profound treasure and enveloped all the space within 10 kilometers of her. "Wear this, Wuxin." Yun Qi placed one of the world jades in Yun Wuxin's hands and advised seriously, "Never store this in your spatial artifact. Instead, keep it on your person at all times. In case the unthinkable happens, you'll be able to teleport to Emperor Yun City immediately." "I got it." Although she thought that her father's precautions were entirely too excessive, she obediently accepted the world jade and admired its unique light for a moment. Then she carefully deposited it inside her sash. "So, who are you going to give the remaining 2 jades to, father?" Her tone was serious, but her playful expression was exactly identical to the one on Shui Meiyin's face a moment ago. Personally, I would like Mother and Master to have them, but Auntie Kang Yue and Auntie Linger are the gentlest of them all, so they will never contest for it. They will definitely feel disappointed on the inside, though. Auntie Kei would appear the most unconcerned, but the truth would be the complete opposite. Auntie Lingxi grew up together with Father, and everyone knows just how close you two are. Even I would feel sorry for her if you don't give her one. Auntie Keijai looks very unhappy for some reason. It would be a bad idea to make her even madder. Auntie Meiyin poured her sweat and blood into creating these 3-world jades. Although she gave them all to you, I bet she really wants you to put one around her neck with your own 2 hands. Auntie, enough, enough! Waves of headache assaulted Yun Qi's. The 2-world jades in his hand suddenly felt scalding hot for some reason. Yun Wuxin clasped her hand behind her back and bent forward slightly. Her current appearance was one an outsider who was used to her cold, lofty mask could never imagine. If you don't mind, I may have a solution to your problem. Are you sure it's a good solution? Yun Qi glanced at his cute daughter suspiciously. Yun Wuxin said half jokingly and half seriously, "It's simple. All you need to do is give me a younger brother and a younger sister, hee." To her surprise, Yun Qi actually nodded after a moment of consideration. Not a bad idea. His eyes focused, and his expression suddenly turned serious. In that case, help me trick your mom into the bedroom tonight. It's been 7 days and 18 hours since she allowed me to touch a hair on her. I can't believe she's still angry about that. Of course she's angry. Yun Wuxin rolled her eyes at Yun Qi. How could she not after she saw what you did to Auntie? If she wasn't as soft-hearted as she is, I would be ignoring you just like Mom. HMPH. It's not like that, Yueli and I are. You know it's no use trying to explain things to an angry spouse, right? Much less me. Yun Wuxin hit a snicker before continuing with a straight face. Plus, how is Mom at fault when you're really the one who couldn't give me a younger brother or a younger sister? I have more aunties than I can count, and let's not pretend that you haven't been with them. All this time when my mom was ignoring you. A girlish snort suddenly came from below. Yun Qi's already awkward expression immediately crumbled into something worse. It was only now that Yun Wuxin noticed the new arrival. Panicking over the likelihood that she had really hurt her father's dignity, she said in a hurry, "Auntie Linger, I was just joking with Father." "I know," a smiling Su Linger replied while walking up to them. "Can you play with Yongning for a bit, Wuxin? There's something very important that I would like to talk with your father about." "Okay." Yun Wuxin hurriedly agreed before escaping the scene. She didn't even dare to look at Yun Qi's face before she left. "This is getting serious. Even your precious daughter is starting to worry over you," Su Linger teased Yun Qi after arriving by his side. HMPH? Yun Qi exhaled through his nose, crossed his arms, and feigned indifference. "This was a common problem for the dragon gods, and I have the dragon gods' bloodline, so it can't be helped. It's not all bad, though. It would be terrifying if 10,000 years later, the number of my descendants grew to tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands like some of the realm kings or god emperors in the god realm." His scalp turned numb just thinking about it. Yes, whatever you say, husband." Su Linger's eyes curled a little with cheer. "I'm sure it's the same for Wuxin. She may ask for a younger brother or sister time and again, but I bet she's really worried that she would lose some of your love to her future siblings." What an unnecessary worry. Yun Qi let out a chuckle before asking, "So, what is this important thing you wish to talk with me about, Linger?" "Make a guess, husband." Su Linger blinked cutely. Yun Qi tried, but he couldn't think of anything that fit the weight behind Linger's words. He replied tentatively, Did Kei and Keijai get into an argument or something?" "Of course not. In fact, they are doing great right now." Su Linger took a step forward and moved her face closer until her lips were almost touching Yun Qi's cheek. Then she whispered in a quiet voice, "What else is very important besides the matter between you and Sister Lingxi?" Yun Qi's surprise gave way to uncontrollable excitement. Did you finally figure out why?" "Not yet," Su Linger replied slowly and seriously. "But I've told your master about your weird impotence whenever you're facing Sister Lingxi, and he said..." Stop. Yun Qi interrupted, "You can say go soft or whatever, but never use that word ever. Also, what? You told my master about this." Impotence was the greatest pain for any man, and the great emperor of the god realm was no exception. "Don't worry, husband. When I spoke with our master, I made sure to mention that it was someone else's husband." Yun Qi put a hand to his forehead. "Master isn't stupid, you know." "That's not important, hee." Su Linger just barely held back a giggle at Yun Qi's expression. She continued in a consoling tone, "You really don't need to mind about this. Everyone knows that our husband is the greatest, strongest, and manliest man in the entire world, except Sister Lingxi." At number percent, Yun Qi groaned inside his head. She just had to add that last part. What did Master say? Yun Qi tried to stay calm, but he only half succeeded when he realized that he could no longer visit his master without feeling some intense awkwardness. "Master's judgment was exactly the same as mine," Su Linger said. "If the body is perfectly healthy and the man doesn't react differently before another woman, then it can only be a psychological problem. For years, I had believed that your psyche had created some sort of mental block because she was your little aunt. You had believed her to be your blood relative for 15 years after all. However, after you increased all our cultivation to the divine origin realm using the divine water of life, and I spent the past couple of years growing accustomed to the body and profound energy of the divine way, I came to realize that it was a mistake. This mental block may affect a mortal man, but never to a divine way profound practitioner like you." Yun Qi had figured this out himself a long time ago. A body forged in the divine way simply couldn't be touched by the negative effects of the psyche. 2. I haven't thought about this until now because of your years-long disappearance, but your symptom remained even after you came back. After searching for a solution or even a reason for the past couple months to no avail, I finally decided that I must consult Master about it. After going missing for 5 years straight, Yun Qi had returned a renewed man in every sense of the word. He had united the northern divine region, flattened the 3 divine regions, torn the dragon monarch apart with his bare hands, and became the emperor of the universe himself. Discounting the era of the gods, he was without a doubt the greatest profound practitioner ever in the entire cosmos. After he returned to the Blue Pole Star, Su Linger, Kang Yue, Chu Yuechen, Little Demon Empress, Feng Zuer, and more, everyone had come to know exactly how powerful his draconic blood and divine body really were. He had grinded for 7 days and nights straight and remained as energetic as he was on the first day. And yet, the second he pounced on Xianxia Lingxi, his little brother would immediately wilt like a flower. It was exactly the same as it was back then. He himself was a genius doctor. His art of healing had long since surpassed Yun Gu's, especially after he had cultivated the divine miracle of life to completion. In fact, his cultivation in this area had gone beyond the art of healing and into the boundary that was the true essence of life itself. He knew better than anyone that it was neither a physical or a mental problem. That was why he was so confused by it. This was no illness he was contending with. No, this was an invisible curse. But what could possibly curse him? In this world where the heavenly way itself feared him and the dragon monarch was crushed by him like an ant, even if a transcendental existence like that did exist in the world, why in the primal chaos would they curse him with something so nonsensical? Master admits that he is confounded, since the issue is neither physical nor mental. That is why he requested me to bring the patient to him for an actual inspection. Do you get why I am here now? You want me to follow you to meet Master? Yun Qi exhaled in a helpless voice. Su Linger stuck out her tongue a bit before grabbing Yun Qi's wrist and shaking it back and forth. "Husband, I know you don't like this, but this is Master Yun Gu we're talking about. You know there's no illness in the world that he cannot treat. Both you and Sister Lingxi have been hung up on this for a very long time, and this is the only possible way to solve this that I can think of. Please resolve yourself and come with me, okay? Master will find a way to solve this." "No." However, Yun Qi rejected her without hesitation. "In fact, you don't need to worry about this anymore, Linger." Surprised and slightly aggrieved, Su Linger stopped shaking his hands and asked in a timid voice, You really want to keep it a secret that much?" "It's not that." Yun Qi retook her hands to assure her. "I just know that even Master won't be able to solve this. Don't worry, though. One day I will figure out the reason myself. Also, when you speak to Lingxi later, please tell her that it's just me still unable to get over myself, okay? I don't want her to start wondering if she's the real problem." Amusingly enough, Xianxia Lingxi being capable of turning him soft instantly wasn't even the strangest thing about her. The fact that she could somehow decipher the world-defying heaven manual written using the divine text of absolute beginning was a million times stranger than that. Wait a minute, the world-defying heaven manual. Now that he thought about it, he hadn't asked Xianxia Lingxi to decipher the last world-defying heaven manual the heaven-smiting devil emperor had given to Shui Meiyin before she left. and Shui Meiyin had passed to him later on. There were a couple of reasons. For one, he was the strongest profound practitioner in the entire universe. Two, he had too much to catch up on after he was finally able to return home. It wasn't like the manual hadn't come across his mind at all, but it was quickly buried by other matters. Now, though, he felt like he should figure out its contents for some reason. Seeing Yun-Chi's peaceful but firm expression, Su Linger understood that there was no point trying to change his mind. Very well. I just hope Master won't go on another rant about hiding a sickness for fear of treatment again. Oh, right, Su Linger asked suddenly. Who is that Yun Kong person you brought home? He has no profound energy or even memories, but you went through the effort to obfuscate his identity anyway. You're only making us more curious, you know that? He is a sinner who deserves 1,000,000 deaths, but I cannot execute for some reasons, Yun-Chi replied. His past is non-consequential. Just treat him like you would any other person. Keijai hadn't objected to Yun-Chi's treatment of Xing Jiukong, but he had no doubt that she didn't want anyone to know that he was her father. Maybe she would visit him one day, maybe she would never. It was up to her to decide. I see. Su Linger looked thoughtful, but she didn't pursue it any further. Speaking of which, he hasn't asked Master to restore his lost memories, has he? Yun-Chi asked. No. Su Linger shook her head. On the contrary, he actually rebuffed Master's request when he offered to inspect his head and see if there's a chance to restore his memories. Yun Kong claimed that watching our Master rescuing the ill and wounded was like having his soul cleansed by pure water. Every time he witnessed a dying patient returning to life, he felt as if their reignited flames of life were glowing in his own hands. It was a kind of satisfaction and joy that was beyond all description. He said that the man who brought him here had called him an unforgivable sinner, and the longer he worked with Master, the more he grew to fear and reject his own past. That is why he is certain that he doesn't ever want to regain his memories. I see. Yun-Chi raised his eyebrows slightly. He didn't quite know how to feel about this. He really wanted to punish Xing Jiukong, but it looked like he had saved him instead. Although Shui Meiyin was restructuring the surrounding space of the entire Xiao residence, not many people actually noticed her activity. Yun-Chi had returned to Xiao Lingxi's courtyard and saw her sitting with her chin between her hands and watching a rack of grapes she had grown herself. She was wearing a jade green dress that outlined her perfect shoulders and delicate waist. Her peaceful and elegant features looked like they would never be tainted by the filth of the mortal world. Xiao Lingxi turned around with a beautiful smile on her face when she heard his footsteps behind her. You came, little Chi. Shouldn't you be with Wuxin right now? I chased her away. She's 20 years old, she shouldn't stick around her father like a baby. Yun-Chi walked up to Xiao Lingxi while saying this. Xiao Lingxi suppressed a giggle. Someone's feeling defiant today. Just wait until the day Wuxin marries. I'll be there when your act falls apart. Yun-Chi sat down beside Xiao Lingxi and wrapped his arm around her waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. You've been blanking out a lot recently. Is there something on your mind? Xiao Lingxi shook her head reflexively, but she nodded slowly after she finished processing his words. After meeting Meiyin and Keijai, I came to realize that the goddesses of the god realm are truly different. And I haven't even met my new older sister, the one called Mukshunian, yet. I heard that she is very dignified and that she used to be your master. Meiyin even said that there is no other woman you respect and listen to more than her. He couldn't say it wasn't true. So, I'm a little nervous, to be honest. I'm worried I would fumble and leave her a bad impression. For the past 2 days, I've been thinking about how I should speak and act around her. Her tension and worry were almost tangible to his eyes. Haha, your worry is unnecessary. She is nowhere as scary as you imagine. Yun-Chi held Xiao Lingxi's hands as he said this. He was smiling, but his heart ached painfully for his childhood friend. Kang Yue was Empress Kang, Feng Zuer was the Phoenix Goddess, Huan Keiyi was the little demon empress of the illusory demon realm, Su Linger was the disciple of the world-respected medical saint, and Chu Yuechen was the frozen cloud palace master and mother of Yun Wuxin. As for Kai Weiao, Kaianai Yinger, Shui Meiyin, Keijai, and Mukshunian, they stood at a height where she couldn't even begin to imagine. Of all the women Yun-Chi had loved, she was the only one who was perfectly average. Even disregarding family background, influence, and status, her looks were inferior even compared to Feng Zuer or Little Demon Empress, much less the likes of Kaianai Yinger or Kai Weiao. It was impossible not to feel some sadness and sense of inferiority every time she looked at the women surrounding Yun-Chi. She was too average, too humble. She just didn't feel like she belonged with them. However, she didn't want to reveal her feelings in front of Xianxia either. She didn't want him to worry for her. I'll admit that Xianxia looks very dignified, scarily so even. However, he suddenly lowered his voice and wore a mischievous look on his face. Ever heard of the phrase, cold outside, hot inside? His closeness caused Xianxia's heart to race despite herself. She asked hesitantly, "You are saying that Sister Xianxia is such a person?" "Oh, yes," Xianxia declared with absolute confidence. When she's in the presence of an outsider, she can freeze someone into a popsicle with her 2 eyes. On the bed, though, Hugh, not even 10 Zooers and 9 Kes are a match for her. Xianxia's eyes and mouth widened at the same time. "Here's another secret," Xianxia continued. "Do you know how Xianxia and I went from master and student to lovers? Not long after I became her disciple, she, forced herself on me while we were at a place called the Ancient God Burying Inferno Prison." "What?" Xianxia couldn't stop herself from crying out. That was her first time, and it took me 2 days and nights of non-stop activity to finally satisfy her. Xianxia exhaled shortly. "That is why people say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Sometimes what you see is what you get, yes, but other times, well, who knows? Maybe the scariest person you ever meet is also the most. Hehehe. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that you really don't need to be nervous around her. Heck, who's to say she isn't more nervous than you are? After all my women know there's no one closer and more important to me than you, my Xianxia." "Oh, okay." She had inadvertently conjured some weird scenes in her mind after listening to Xianxia. Blushing, she bowed her head in an attempt to hide her embarrassment. She understood that Xianxia was exaggerating things quite a bit for her sake. However, she couldn't deny that it did wonders to dispel her nervousness and tension. Meanwhile, Mute Xianxia was watching a cuddling Xianxia and Xianxia behind a thin cloud in the sky. No one had noticed her due to the effects of moon-splitting cascade. 3. After learning of Shui Meiyin and Keizai's arrival, she ultimately wasn't able to quell her impatience and decided to give Xianxia a pleasant surprise. Of course, she couldn't show up right away. If she did, this lovey-dovey scene would have turned into a horror story instantly. "HMPH, there's nothing he cannot say to coax a girl, can he?" She muttered to herself but didn't show herself or leave the area. She stayed just out of range of Xianxia's perception and watched over him and Xianxia in silence. 1. T/N. I've had confused readers in the previous chapters, so here's an explanation. Formations usually have a core which in Chinese is called the eye of the formation. It's kinda like how people call the center a hurricane the eye of a hurricane. You need 2 teleportation formations to connect 2 places together, which is why you need 2 cores or eyes to set them up properly. 2. T/N. This explains why the EHGE can't just die or even go crazy despite his mental state. The body is too strong even though the mind is in pieces. 3. T/N. Xianxia is dead, but he's right. What a voyeur, man. "Xianxia, I want to show you something." Xianxia was about to ask what when a pitch-black slate suddenly appeared in Xianxia's hands. The moment her eyes made contact with the object, her heart suddenly shook like it had been struck full force by a giant hammer. Her inquiry never made it past her lips. "This is..." Even as she spoke, it felt as if her eyes and her mind had flown somewhere else. "The heaven-smiting devil emperor gave it to Meiyin before she left, and Meiyin to me afterward," Xianxia said. "The engravings on the slate are probably..." Suddenly, the seemingly inert pitch-black slate shone with a dark, devilish light. Xianxia cut himself off. It was the same anomaly as before, but it still stunned him nonetheless. The light scattered quickly into several thousand smaller beams, but they didn't travel into the distance. Instead, they paused unnaturally in the air before taking the form of many odd words. It was the divine text of absolute beginning. Xianxia stared at the strange, floating words dazedly. She mumbled, "It's the world-defying heavenly manual again." The first time she saw the world-defying heavenly manual, she had been surprised and perplexed by it. But now her emotions felt a lot flightier and more difficult to describe. Also, unlike the last time, the color of the floating text was pitch black. It could be the effects of the heaven-smiting devil emperor's power, or maybe it had been like this from the start. The world-defying heavenly manual was split into 3 parts, and this is the last one, Xianxia said with a sigh. Even the gods and devils of the era of the gods weren't able to reunite them. That it has been during our time can only be described as a miracle. The first part of the world-defying heavenly manual had come from the Moon Slaughter Devil sovereign of the Eternal Night Devil clan, an ancient devil who just barely clung to life since the disaster of the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations, until he was ended by Xianxia. The second part had been discovered by Qianai Yinger in the god realm of absolute beginning. Finally, the third part had been in the possession of the heaven-smiting devil emperor, an existence who was thought to have passed away an eternity ago. The past, the present, and the beyond. The three parts of the world-defying heavenly manual had literally existed in three separate times and spaces until they fell into Xianxia's hands. For the first time ever, the complete version of the ancestral divine art would appear to this universe. It was a boon not even the ancient creation gods and the devil emperors had the karma to partake in. A long time later, after Xianxia showed no signs of breaking out of her daze anytime soon, Xianxia asked in a tentative tone, "Do you still recognize these characters? The divine text of absolute beginning?" "Amen." Xianxia nodded subtly. "Not only do I recognize them, I feel like I've seen this somewhere, even though I know that I've never seen them before." Xianxia. Xianxia slowly recited, "At the beginning of heaven's end and the eternity of earth's depths, the universe came to be and the way stretches forever." The lightning ached, the thunder severed, the cold labored, the ice perished, the wind mourned, the cloud grieved, the mountain sorrowed, stone lamented, the flame wept, the blaze sobbed. Light and darkness fusing seamlessly only to return to nothing in the end. Xianxia's slow, soft words flowed into his ears. Not a sliver of profound energy could be detected in her voice, but it easily intruded into the deepest corners of his mind and soul just like before. Xianxia's eyes were shut before he realized it. Not only that, his consciousness had, uncaring of his will at all, automatically blocked out all other sensory information and put him under a unique state of emptiness. In this emptiness, there was only Xianxia's voice and the ancestral divine art that was slowly but surely growing complete with every word she spoke. A heart spawns countless thoughts, but all thoughts eventually run out of desire, and the lack of desire leads to nothingness. However, nothingness creates countless spirits, and countless spirits nurture countless hearts. Man is not self, but self becomes more like man as a result. The beginning of heaven, the end of earth, the creation of primal chaos, the conclusion of samsara, one way or another, it all returns to nothing. Xianxia didn't notice Xianxia's condition at all. She kept speaking even as her eyes grew more unfocused. Her expression turned solid, and her voice steadied to the point where it was almost perfectly even and emotionless. The world-defying heavenly manual. The ancestral divine art was unfolding in her mind and soul at the same rate as it crept toward completion in Xianxia's. In the sky, Xianxia was caught by hesitation after Xianxia and Xianxia had entered their unnatural state. Worried as she was, she didn't dare to approach them. Moreover, Xianxia's words were going in one ear and out the other. She couldn't remember a single word even though she heard them clearly. "This is the world-defying heavenly manual," Xianxia whispered to herself. "Lightless is dark, darkless is light. Pathless is path, lawless is law. Only nothingness is endless and eternal." When the final word left Xianxia's lips, the devilish light suddenly dispersed, and the pitch-black divine text of absolute beginning vanished like it was never there. All that was left was the pitch-black and inert slate sitting on Xianxia's knees. The color in Xianxia's eyes suddenly dissipated. Her pupils vanished bit by bit as endless gray and white devoured the world before her eyes. Suddenly, a blurry image appeared in the grayish-white world. When she subconsciously tried to see what it was, a dozen more images appeared in the world. Their number quickly grew to 100, 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000. The infinite images that appeared quickly and without warning easily blew apart Xianxia's fragile soul sea. Her crumbling consciousness couldn't sense it, but her body was falling back toward the floor. Xianxia never noticed it from the start until the end. What was nothingness? Every animate and inanimate object in the universe was born from nothing, ended in nothing, evolved from nothing, and dissolved into nothing. It was the beginning and the end of everything. What was the law of nothingness? Xianxia was the only person in the universe who possessed it. However, he couldn't even begin to explain what it was. It was thanks to the law of nothingness that he was able to absorb the energy of a profound crystal, and even a profound beast's profound core directly as his strength. It was why he could take control of any king realm's lost divine artifact or divine origin power by force despite not having the necessary bloodline. Common sense and basic laws simply didn't apply to him. He didn't know how to circulate the law of nothingness. He couldn't even sense it in his power or his body. However, it didn't stop him from doing impossible things such as achieving his current cultivation, outright ignoring the basic rules of the universe in many cases and more. It all came naturally to him. To give an example, it was like his eyes suddenly but naturally grew the ability to identify a new and never-before-seen color. He didn't need to learn, practice, study, use anything or employ any outside help at all. He had never been able to study the ancestral divine art Xianxia had kindly interpreted for him. He didn't even know how to begin to do so. However, it didn't stop him from suddenly, but naturally, gaining some sort of supernatural and rule-breaking ability afterward. Not only that, the world-defying heavenly manual had thrown him into weird and inexplicable dreams every time it worked its power on him, and this time was no exception. Right now, Xianxia was contending with all kinds of strange, dream fragments in his mind. Yuanba, you're really way too awesome. Grandfather said that you're the #1 genius in Floating Cloud City, a genius that our Floating Cloud City might not produce again even after 1,000 years. He also said that you might very well shake up the entire Blue Wind Nation in the future. I really envy you. Heh. Actually, I'm the one who envies you. You already have a little aunt and you can do everything together. But as for me, mother passed away early and I'm the only person in the house. I don't even have any brothers or sisters. If I had a big brother or sister, or even a little brother or sister, then I wouldn't feel so lonely and bored anymore. Then ask Uncle Xia to marry a few new concubines so that you can have lots of brothers and sisters. My father just doesn't want to. Every year there are many people who are trying to get my father to take new concubines, but my father won't relent no matter what. It was a familiar dream Xianxia had dropped into. There was a marked difference, however. Previously, the dreams were blurry, ephemeral, and almost impossible to recall besides some bits and pieces. It was why he had paid them little to no attention previously. Dreams were naturally illogical and fleeting. This time, though, he was completely awake even though he was supposed to be dreaming. Unlike the previous dreams, this one felt so clear that it was like he was actually present at the scene. This time, he also had a clear view of Xia Yuanba's dream appearance. The Xianxia in the dream looked exactly like what he was in reality, but Xia Yuanba, the young boy, looked to be around 10 years old, and he was 1 year younger than Xianxia. However, he was about half a head taller, and his physique was unnaturally thin. It was completely different from the brawny Xia Yuanba he remembered. Moreover, his thinness wasn't the skinniness of a 10-year-old. He looked thin only because there was little to no fat in his body. It was the kind of muscular physique that only a trained person could acquire. It almost felt like every cell in his body was hibernating or something. They were just waiting for a great power to awaken them all. 10 years old. He was just 10 years old. Xianxia hadn't exactly led a long life, but he had never seen a body like this. Even better, Xianxia's soul shivered for an instant when he met Xia Yuanba's eyes. His young features were etched with concern and determination for Dream Xianxia, but his eyes also contained a kind of power that pierced the soul itself. Xianxia wasn't the fragile young man of Floating Cloud City he used to be. He was the man who defeated the greatest profound practitioner ever to stand at the pinnacle of the universe. There was nothing and no one that could threaten him anymore. However, the hidden light in young Xia Yuanba's eyes had caused tremors in his soul. Him, the great emperor of the God realm, he was very familiar with Xia Yuanba's tyrannical emperor's divine veins. It was an incredibly rare talent even in the God realm, so much so that he would have become a realm king had he been born in an upper star realm. However, the divine light in this Xia Yuanba's eyes was far stronger than even the real Yuanba's eyes after he had awakened his veins. It was beyond even the supernatural body he had been gifted by the tyrannical emperor's divine veins. Forget seeing it, he didn't think this extraordinary physique was even recorded in the long history of the God realm. If he had to make a comparison, he would say that it was at least on par with the female-only talent, the heart of snow-glazed glass. Xianxia stared at the dream, Xia Yuanba, with the clearest eyes and coolest mind since he began having these dreams. At just the young age of 10 years old, Xia Yuanba possessed a thin but unnaturally muscular physique, a talent that exceeded even the tyrannical emperor's divine veins, and a completely different future. However, he neither had an older sister nor any siblings whatsoever. Why was his dream warped like this? Why was it happening again? And why did it all feel so eerily real? A new dream fragment entered his consciousness. In this dream, Xianxia, still a 10-year-old child, was sitting next to Xianxia and listening to Xianxia describing a familiar story in a warm tone. Back then, not long after Chair had been born, Governor Sidhu's daughter was born. However, due to the illness of the governor's wife, when the child was born, she was very weak and on the brink of death. If her life was to be saved, they needed someone who was at least at the spirit profound realm to even have a chance. One could count the number of people who had reached the spirit profound realm in floating Cloud City with their fingers, and every single one of these people possessed extraordinary status. In order to save her, they would definitely harm their own foundations. As a result, nearly every one of them was unmoved despite the governor's desperate begging. The only exception was Yinger. He risked serious harm to himself and nearly exhausted all of his profound strength to stabilize that child's vitality. As a result, she was able to survive. Chair, that was how the destined wedding between you and the governor's daughter happened. At that time, Governor Sidhu was so grateful to Yinger for saving his daughter's life that he became sworn brothers with Yinger there and then. Furthermore, he announced in front of everyone that his daughter would be married to Xiao Ying's son in the future in order to repay heaven's kindness. HMPH. Xianxia turned her nose upwards as she said in a very soft voice, I don't like that Sidhu Xuan at all. She's always so aloof, and she's even like that when she sees little Chi. It was another dream he had experienced before. The scenery, the words, everything was exactly the same as it was last time. The only difference was that he was perfectly conscious this time. In this dream, the person Xiao Ying sacrificed himself to save was Sidhu Xuan, not Xia Qingyu. As a result, his bride-to-be thanks to Xiao Ying's heroism also became Sidhu Xuan, not Xia Qingyu. Another dream fragment entered his consciousness. This time it was the figure of a girl. Stand right there, Xiao Qi. She was a tall and slim woman dressed in luxurious clothing. She looked around 15 or 16 years old, but she was pretty in a way that didn't fit her age because she had heavy makeup. For the current Xianxia, it was utterly beneath him to even allow a woman like her to hold his gaze for an instant. That being said, she was perfectly attractive to a young man who hadn't yet begun to broaden his horizons. At the very least, it was clear that his dream self, he was still Xiao Qi at this time, was just barely keeping a lid on his nervousness. Miss Sidhu, Xianxia replied politely. This was the first time ever Sidhu Xuan had taken the initiative to speak with him, so he could barely conceal his excitement and joy. The name, Sidhu Xuan, had appeared multiple times in his dreams. In his actual memory, Sidhu Xuan was the daughter of Governor Sidhu and had resided in floating Cloud City just like him. Naturally, he had met her before, but for some reason, his memories of her were so blurry that he couldn't even recall her appearance. He hadn't paid heed to it at the time because he was busy surviving in the God realm when he first started having these dreams. Why would he care about some governor's daughter he hadn't even made the acquaintance of when he was still in his birth city? Not to mention that dreams often turned out to be completely nonsensical. This time, though, he had a perfect view of Sidhu Xuan, and suddenly it felt as if an invisible fog had been lifted from his head. His memories and impression of Sidhu Xuan suddenly became crystal clear. In fact, they felt so clear that it was as if he had never forgotten about her in the first place. Sidhu Xuan stared at Xianxia with unconcealed arrogance and disdain. Do you know what a toad is? His dream self's entire body tensed like a spring. It took him several breaths before the suffocating sensation finally faded, and he regained enough cool to speak in an even tone. Feel free to speak your mind, Miss Sidhu. Despite being only 15 years old, he had heard so many insults that he had grown numb to them. However, to hear one from Sidhu Xuan herself was a blow that nearly tore a hole in his mental defense. HMPH, Sidhu Xuan side-eyed him. Our marriage is only 5 months away. I'm the daughter of a governor, and yet I'm being forced to marry a complete cripple like you. Do you know how much scorn I've had to bear because of you? Xianxia felt his face turning pale, so he bit his tongue to regain control of himself. I understand. If you won't marry me, you may ask your father and my grandfather to cancel the engagement. It isn't too late yet. Cancel? Do you really think I would wait until now if it was possible? Sidhu Xuan's voice grew increasingly shrill. The entire city knows your dead dad saved my life when I was born. My dad has sworn to wed us before countless people. If your dad was still alive, then it would have been fine. We could have negotiated a different way to repay our favor. But no, not only is he dead, It is rumored that half the reason he died was because he exhausted himself to save me. My dad would be called an ingrate for the rest of his life if he cancels the engagement now. The Sidhu family is a venerated family. Its dignity will not suffer for the likes of you, Xianxia said slowly. Don't worry, though. My dad won't cancel the engagement, and neither will I. Her eyes suddenly took on a disgusting flavor. You are a cripple, but you're not completely useless. After all, you do have quite the handsome appearance. If nothing else, you are very qualified to be a boy toy. Xianxia's mental defense finally collapsed, and his features began spasming uncontrollably. Since we met by chance today, I may as well tell you about the future. Xianxia's half-narrowed eyes were colored in 3/10 disdain and 7/10 playfulness. The bad kind. You will learn to be obedient during these last couple months. If your performance pleases me, you may even enjoy a somewhat good life after we get married. Otherwise, let's just say that your crippled body may not be strong enough to stand my teachings. Crack. Did he break a tooth? He probably did. Xianxia could feel a growing pool of blood in his mouth. Little Chi. Suddenly, the most familiar cry in his life entered his ears. It washed away all those negative emotions that nearly crushed his soul like a pure spring. Seemingly satisfied with Xianxia's tortured but suppressed expression, Xianxia shot him one last arrogant smirk before turning away. It wasn't long before a girl who looked as lithe as a colorful butterfly appeared beside Xianxia. She looked at the departing Xianxia and exclaimed in surprise, "Is that Xianxia? Were you talking to her just now?" Xianxia looked at the girl clinging to his arm. Just a few breaths ago, his shame and anger felt tangible enough to burst out of his chest. However, the large majority of it disappeared the second his gaze made contact with her countenance. There were countless people inside or outside the Xiao clan who insulted him for his disability. He had gotten used to it a long time ago. However, 3 people kept him going no matter how difficult things became. His grandfather, who loved him dearly and had never given up on him. His good friend Xia Yuanba, who defended him with everything he had since young. And his little aunt, who loved him so much she would search for him just because he had been out of sight for slightly over an hour. He was already blessed to have 3 people who cared for him from the bottom of their hearts. What everyone else says need not and shouldn't be the focus of his life. That's right. From a very young age, no matter what kind of humiliation and insults he had suffered before, the mere sight and sound of Xianxia could always calm him down and satisfy him. That was all that really mattered. Amen, Xianxia nodded. I think this is the first time she spoke to me of her own accord. It's not like we've never run into each other before, but she has never acknowledged me before now. Really? Xianxia's surprise grew. What did she say to you? Nothing. It was just about the arrangements after the wedding, Xianxia said in a casual tone. He was never going to repeat Xianxia's words to Xianxia because the last thing he wanted to see was her angry, sorrowful face. The second last thing he wanted to see would be his grandfather's expression after hearing this. I see. Xianxia's voice softened, and a tinge of something that even she herself didn't notice entered her gaze. There have been a lot of weird rumors in the city for the past 2 years. They all say that Xianxia would do everything in her power to cancel the engagement. I guess rumors were just rumors after all, huh? Of course rumors are just rumors. Xianxia chuckled. The governor won't cancel the engagement, that's what Xianxia said to me herself. Amen, that's good. I'm sure Dad will be happy to hear this. That was what she said, but Xianxia didn't feel happy at all even though she was one of the people who detested the rumors the most. Did you speak with Xianxia for a long time? Xianxia asked. She didn't understand why she was asking such a weird question herself. No, it was a very short conversation, Xianxia replied before adding, I don't like talking to her. I would never even think to marry her if the engagement didn't exist. I would rather be with you forever, little aunt. Hee. Xianxia let out a girlish giggle before hiding her expression. To be honest, I don't like Xianxia at all, and I like the idea of the 2 of you marrying even less. But that is what Dad wants. He won't be able to rest easy unless the marriage goes through. Anyway, let's go home together. She grabbed Xianxia's arm before continuing expectantly. Dad hired a super-duper good doctor this time. A lot of people call him a medical immortal. I'm sure he'll be able to cure you, little Chi. Now that the fog had lifted, Xianxia could say with absolute certainty that the Xianxia he remembered was exactly identical to the one he was seeing in his dreams. However, he was equally certain that these dreams didn't match his reality. The differences were minor, but they were enough to make his dreams a completely separate reality. That was the crux of the problem, though, wasn't it? It felt so real that it was like a separate reality, a different past that actually happened. The scene changed again, and this time it was filled with red tables, red candles, red curtains, and more. Little Chi, wake up. Today's the day you're getting married to Miss Sidhu, and it's almost time already. Quickly. Xianxia insistently but gently woke him from his slumber. Later, she helped him into his red wedding clothes. Little Chi, I made this porridge for you. You have a weak constitution, and it's going to be a long morning, so you should finish everything. She brought him a ridiculously huge bowl of porridge. It smelled delicious. I got it. He didn't even bother with the spoon. He just drank the whole thing from the bowl. After he was done, he looked at Xianxia and grew a bit misty-eyed. I wonder if I can still eat your meals after I get married, little aunt. Don't forget that the governor's daughter is marrying into your family, not the other way around. If you want, I can prepare your meals every day just like before. Suddenly, her smile lessened and she said softly, I'm sure we'll have less time for each other after you get married, though, little Chi. Of course not. He raised his hand and swore immediately. Didn't I promise you yesterday that I'll never forget about you even after I marry Sidhu Xuan? We'll spend just as much time with each other as we used to, and I'll always be there whenever you call for me. He would never forget how Sidhu Xuan looked when she spouted those ugly words at him. There were only two reasons he was going through with this wedding. 1, he wanted to fulfill his grandfather's wish. 2, he wanted to protect his late father's honor. The aftermath of the wedding was sure to be ugly, but he no longer feared it one bit because Xianxia was right. No matter what happened in the future, he would still be in the Xiao clan, and Xianxia would still be right beside him. Big brother, big brother. It was Xia Yuanba's voice. He had rushed in looking like someone had lit a flame under his ass. Yuanba, you're surprisingly early today. Yun Chi greeted him smilingly. It's the day of your marriage, so how can I not be around to help out? Xia Yuanba looked incredibly excited. In the scene, the 15-year-old Xia Yuanba looked extraordinarily handsome. He was still a little thin, and his skin color seemed a tad lighter than normal. This was nothing to an ordinary person, but the current Yun Chi could tell that it wasn't because Xia Yuanba hadn't gone outdoors as of late. A sort of cold, metallic sheen was hovering right above his skin, and it was what gave him a whiter complexion. He also noticed that the light in Xia Yuanba's pupils had grown more repressed, but as a result became even more piercing than before. So, how does it feel like to get married? Why do I feel like you're not very excited? Xia Yuanba asked. To be honest, I am not excited. I barely care about the wedding at all. Yun Chi then stared at Xia Yuanba for a moment before saying, You, on the other hand, are unusually excited given the time of the day. It's not just because of my wedding, is it? Xia Yuanba's eyes shone brightly. I do have some good news to share. The day before yesterday, my father invited a friend of his, a teacher from New Moon Profound Palace, over to his house. He was hoping to ask for a favor and drop me into New Moon Profound Palace. But after his friend saw me, he said that someone of my talent should just join Blue Wind Profound Palace directly. Oh, that's amazing. That's something the entire floating cloud city should celebrate. Yun Chi congratulated and felt happy for Xia Yuanba from the bottom of his heart. However, he couldn't help but feel deeply envious of his friend and sad over his own fate as well. To the real Yun Chi, he knew with that dream Xia Yuanba's talent would have stunned even the king realms of the god realm, much less the likes of Blue Wind Profound Palace. To dream Yun Chi, though, even Blue Wind Profound Palace was an impossible dream to grasp. Xian Yuanba could barely conceal his excitement. I was so excited I haven't slept for the past 2 days. When I join Blue Wind Profound Palace and become even stronger than before, I'm sure no one will ever dare to bully you again. But father said that this is best kept a secret to avoid unnecessary complications, so right now you're the only one who knows about it. Oh, right. For the past 2 years, I heard a lot of malicious rumors about Governor Sidhu planning to cancel your engagement and marrying Sidhu Xuan to the son of your clan master, Xiao Yulong, instead. Yun Chi, I was really angry when I heard those rumors, but I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. Thankfully, the rumors have proven themselves to be nothing but falsehoods. Xia Yuanba laughed guilelessly. I bet those rumor mongers are aching from all the slaps they've received right now. Wind does not blow from an empty cave without reason. Yun Chi smiled as if he didn't care about the insults. It's fine, I'm used to it already. Frankly, I'm overjoyed that a cripple like me could have a friend like you, much less the daughter of the governor as my wife. Your entrance to Blue Wind Profound Palace is what we really should celebrate. I bet the entire city will rejoice on the day you officially enter Blue Wind Profound Palace. His voice suddenly turned weak and stuttering. His features gradually became contorted in pain, and the darkness blotting his vision kept growing no matter how many times he blinked. He collapsed. "Big brother, big brother." A panicking Xianxia caught him before he fell over. "Big brother, is something wrong, big brother?" His pupils grew more and more unfocused. The entire world was fading away like a dream. He could still hear Xianxia's voice, but he couldn't form an answer at all. Little Chi, wake up. Don't scare me, little Chi." Xianxia's voice was the last thing he heard before his consciousness faded completely. Outside the image, Xianxia watched as Xianxia hugged his dream self and cried like never before. Her tears wet his wedding clothes, and her features were full of pain and despair. It was only then the image came to a complete stop. Again, he had experienced this dream before. Similarly, the difference between then and now was clarity. In his memory, he had passed away on his wedding day with Xianxia. In his dreams, he had passed away on his wedding day with Siduk Shuan. Xianxia opened his eyes. Light filled his vision. It was the same courtyard, the same familiar scent. This time, though, the dreams were no longer blurry. This time, he remembered every image, every face, and every voice as clear as crystal. "Ah!" a sweet cry rang beside him. "You're awake, husband!" Xianxia looked up. Su Linger's face was just inches away from his own, and Keijai and Little Demon Empress were right beside her. They had clearly been watching over him for a very long time. He actually wasn't sure if he had woken up from his slumber. The dreams were that realistic, and he had never remembered them as clearly as he was now. "What happened?" Keijai asked. "Why did you seal your senses for such a long time?" "It's nothing. It's a special state of enlightenment," replied Xianxia while returning his gaze to the courtyard. Still a little out of it, he asked, "So how long was I out this time?" 7 days, Su Linger replied. At least it wasn't half a month like last time. Before he could relax, though, Su Linger dropped another bomb. "Husband, you need to check on Sister Linxi now." "Linxi?" Her panicky tone jolted him like lightning. He rose to his feet and asked, "What happened to her?" "She fainted when you sealed away your own senses. I wasn't able to wake her up no matter what I tried, and she still hasn't woken up yet." Xianxia was already gone before Su Linger finished her sentence. Xianxia was lying quietly on her bed and breathing evenly. Her face looked pale, but thankfully it wasn't so sickly that it was cause for worry. However, her brow was knitted into a small but permanent frown. It was as if an invisible string was tugging at her mind and keeping her from true rest. Xianxia grabbed her right wrist with one hand and tapped her solar plexus with the other. He slowly injected a vast amount of profound energy into her body in the gentlest way he could. A careful examination later, Xianxia's own brow relaxed for a second before knitting again in doubt. Xianxia's vitality and soul C were perfectly normal. There were no internal or external injuries to be found either. If she was someone else, he would have assumed that they were pretending to be unconscious already. However, Xianxia would never pull something like that. "How is she?" Su Linger asked nervously. Xianxia rose up and answered, "She's fine. She'll probably awaken very soon." Noticing Xianxia's odd tone and expression, Su Linger hesitated for a moment before saying, "To tell you the truth, this isn't the first or even the 10th time Sister Linxi has fallen into an unnatural sleep like this. It is the longest she has ever been unconscious, though." "What?" Xianxia's eyes narrowed. "When was that?" "It began when you first left for the God Realm," Su Linger said. "She fainted the moment you left with Senior Mu Bingyun." Xianxia. "She woke up really quickly that time, but her heart rate and pulse had become 10 times faster than a normal person's." "What?" Xianxia exclaimed in shock. Xianxia's cultivation was extremely weak back then. Her heart rate and pulse should never be able to jump that high. Su Linger continued, "However, it wasn't long before she fully returned to normal, so I simply assumed that it was a case of excessive worry and didn't pay it too much attention. I was wrong. Since that day, she would fall unconscious from time to time, and the duration kept growing longer and longer. I was never able to find out the cause. After her 33rd coma, though, the mysterious ailment suddenly vanished. She has been fine ever since. But now it's starting again." Su Linger clenched her hands like she could somehow squeeze out her worries. "Why didn't I know about this sooner?" A deep sense of unease grew in Xianxia's heart. She replied, "You were gone for years, and when you returned you had lost all of your profound energy. How could we burden you with even more worry?" Sister Linksy had already made a full recovery by then too. She told us again and again not to tell you about it and make you worry. Linksy had always been like this. Even when they were younger, she had never been willing to burden him or add to his worries. A heavy rock sat in Yun-Chi's chest. He thought to himself in frustration, what is happening to Linksy? Please, just please don't let it be harmful to her. No, no, if it isn't harmful, then all is well. If it is, then I will neutralize it no matter what it is. I am the great emperor of the God realm and the cultivator of the divine miracle of life. There is nothing I can't solve. He exhaled slowly to enter a state of perfect calmness and sobriety. Then he began his questions. Besides the obvious, what other symptoms did she display during that time? Sulinger thought for a moment before replying. There were a couple of times she would say weird things after she awoke from her slumber. Like what? Yun-Chi asked urgently. For example, on the day she saw you off to the God realm, she said she saw you scattering into ashes amidst a terrible explosion of fire and starlight. One? Yun-Chi's expression didn't change, but his mind had become as turbulent as a sea storm. He had in fact perished during his first trip to the Star God realm. The star gods of the Star God realm had killed him with their starlight powers, and the flames of Nirvana had claimed him in those final moments. Illusion. Coincidence, prophecy. Little Chi, a quiet voice abruptly brought him back down to earth. He looked down and saw Linksy opening her eyes slowly. Linksy! Yun-Chi immediately leaned forward and placed an arm across her back. He slowly helped her to a sitting position on her bed. Are you all right, Sister Linksy? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Sulinger asked both worriedly and concernedly. Linksy shook her head. I'm fine. I just had a very long dream. A dream? Yun-Chi's features twitched a little. It so happened that he had woken up from a long dream himself. It was so long that I cannot even begin to describe how long it was. Linksy's murmur was tinged with deep exhaustion. But I can't recall even a single bit now that I'm awake. What is happening to me? It was just a dream. It's perfectly normal to forget the contents of a dream. You don't need to recall it, much less pay it any heed, Yun-Chi said smilingly. If you feel tired, feel free to take a short nap. Little Chi. Suddenly, Linksy grasped Yun-Chi's palms tightly. Will you forgive me if one day you realized that I had hurt you terribly? Her fingers were cold and trembling. Yun-Chi returned the grip. Why do you say that when you know that you can never bear to hurt me? His vision blurred the second the words escaped his lips. He remembered saying something similar to a certain person. However, that person had become someone who had wounded him like no other. I don't know. A shimmer of heartbreaking tears coated Linksy's eyes. I keep hearing a voice telling me that I did something terribly wrong and selfish, and it led to a most cruel and irreversible outcome. You must be mistaken. Yun-Chi shook her hands a little. You don't actually think that dreams are real, do you? Just take a short nap. The strange thoughts will disappear when you've gotten over your sleepiness. A dream, Linksy murmured. Yes, it was a dream. So why do I keep thinking of it as reality? Yun-Chi didn't say anything after that, much less demand answers from her. He simply embraced her in silence. Yes, it was all just a dream. Nothing was wrong, and nothing would go wrong ever again. After Linksy had shaken off her initial daze, she seemed to have fully returned to normal. Yun-Chi couldn't detect anything wrong with her. Once in a while, when she was all alone, a vacant expression would overcome her features. She never stopped trying to recall her dreams. To date, all three parts of the world-defying heavenly manual were fully engraved into Yun-Chi's mind. Just like the previous times, he had entered a strange state of enlightenment, but he couldn't even begin to identify what he had learned from the experience. One thing was certain, however. The inheritance of the ancestral God, the world-defying heavenly manual, and the ancestral divine art were finally complete. According to the ancient records, it was an existence that transcended even the creation gods and the devil emperors. Yun-Chi might be the strongest, profound practitioner in the universe already, but that hardly meant that he wasn't deeply curious about it. However, he still couldn't detect any change in his body or his soul. Perhaps this utterly illogical power of nothingness would show itself on its own time just like before. 2. In the meantime, he decided to visit a place he never thought he would ever visit in his life, at least not intentionally. Floating Cloud City, the Governor Manor. Humble servant Sidhu Nan, G greets spiritual master Yun. When Sidhu Nan first saw Xianxia floating above his residence, he had blanked out for 3 full breaths before he finally broke out of his stupor. The simple greeting had taken nearly every ounce of strength and willpower he possessed. Moreover, he only remembered that he had forgotten to kneel after saying the last word. He hurriedly did so and hoped it wasn't too late. His sweat wet the ground as his body shook. All around him, people were dropping to their knees and holding their breath as well. As the governor of floating Cloud City, Sidhu Nan was bestowed with great authority and good sense. He might not understand just how high Xianxia stood above the clouds, but he knew that Xianxia could crush him without even exhaling his breath. Although Sidhu Nan resided in floating Cloud City, he never hoped to meet Xianxia. Now that the legend had actually shown himself, he wondered if he should be honored or terrified. "Governor Sidhu," Xianxia started in an indifferent tone, "it has been a while since we've met." Sidhu Nan hurriedly said, "It is this humble servant's honor to be remembered by spiritual Master Yun. Everyone knows that the prosperity of floating Cloud City and the peace of the entire world is thanks to spiritual Master Yun, and this humble servant makes sure to thank your divine image at least once every day and night." "Where is your daughter, Sidhu Xuan, right now?" Xianxia asked suddenly. The question came out of nowhere, and again Sidhu Nan was frozen for 3 breaths before he looked behind himself and roared, "Get Xuaner now, go, Xianxia." "Ah, as you command," one of the servants answered while half-crawling toward the exit. Meanwhile, Sidhu Nan had bowed his head again and kept his silence. He didn't dare to ask what spiritual Master Yun wanted to do with his daughter as a matter of course, but he couldn't stop himself from wondering about it. Xianxia was practically heaven itself, and he had visited personally to see his daughter. Could it be? No, it was impossible. Although Xianxia was rumored to be extremely lecherous, all his women were 1,000,000 times better than Sidhu Xuan in every way. His daughter was a beauty among mortals, but that was only among mortals. There was no way she would fall into his crosshairs. Did Sidhu Xuan offend him then? That was even more impossible. Forget that Sidhu Xuan utterly lacked the strength to offend Xianxia. Why would he show up personally to enact her punishment? All he needed to do was to say one sentence, and everyone across the world would rush over to carry out the deed themselves. It wasn't long before the servant returned. Following right beside him was a fragile-looking woman and a maid supporting her. "This humble girl Sidhu Xuan greets spiritual Master Yun." She was between 30 to 40 years old, and she was dressed rather sumptuously. She had a thin physique, and her life aura and profound aura were unusually weak. It was probably why she looked much older than another woman of her age. She was soft-spoken not because she chose to be, but because she lacked the strength to do so. He could tell that she would not live to a century even with the governor's great wealth to sustain her. Xianxia stared at her briefly. Despite her aging features, she definitely matched her younger self in his memories. She was definitely the Sidhu Xuan who had appeared in his dreams again and again. 1. "She isn't married?" Xianxia asked. He wasn't expecting to find Sidhu Xuan in the Sidhu residence. At her age, she should have gotten married and been living together with her husband a long time ago. "As she is not spiritual Master Yun," Sidhu Nan explained. "Xuaner was born with a birth defect. She was okay during the first 18 years, but on the day she was going to marry the son of the governor of Yuan City, her illness suddenly reared its ugly head, and we have been housing and nursing her since. Her illness is so severe that we dare not neglect her health even to this day." While Sidhu Nan was talking, Xianxia had scanned Sidhu Xuan about a dozen times over with his spiritual perception. According to his senses, Sidhu Xuan was a woman with a birth defect, severely depleted vitality and short lifespan, and that was all. There was nothing special about her whatsoever. He was both disappointed and relieved. Xianxia shot Sidhu Xuan one last glance and said, "HMPH, I see." Then he was gone, leaving behind an entire residence of dumbfounded people in his wake. An entire hour later, Sidhu Nan finally staggered back to his feet. However, he was still staring at the spot Xianxia had vanished without a trace and wondering if he had dreamed the whole thing. Finally, "It's done," an excited cry entered his ears the moment Xianxia returned to the Xiao clan. Right after that, a white light mixed with a bit of imperceptible crimson took to the sky. It was of course Shui Meiyin. Beneath her, a dimensional profound formation about 6 meters in diameter was circulating in silence. It was incredibly small considering the standards of the current world. No one would believe that it was connected to the impossibly far southern divine region unless they had experienced it themselves. "Do you want to give it a try, big brother Xianxia?" Shui Meiyan flew over to Yun Qi the second she caught his scent. "It has been a while since I went back," said Yun Qi curiously. Now that the dimensional profound formation was complete, he could travel between the Blue Pole Star and Emperor Yun City whenever he wanted to. Also, a certain empress was going to nag him to death if he continued to shirk his duties any longer. "Is it done? Is it done?" The sudden emergence of the strange spatial aura and divine light had attracted the nearby Wuxin like a magnet. She stood beside her father and watched the dimensional profound formation with barely suppressed excitement. "Yep," Shui Meiyan said to Yun Wuxin. "All you need to do is to step into the formation, and you'll be teleported to your dad's city in just 7 breaths. Right now, it is the highest and holiest place in the entire God realm. But of course, it is just a second home to our little princess." "I want to go now." Yun Wuxin pulled her father's arm strongly. "Don't you want to wait for your mom and aunties first?" Yun Qi asked. "I want to go now." Yun Wuxin clearly couldn't wait any longer. "Also, my mom may not have forgiven you yet." In the end, Yun Qi was dragged by Yun Wuxin into the newly minted profound formation by force. He didn't even get the chance to notify Xiao Lingxi and the others about his departure. Emperor Yun City was a 150-kilometer-long floating city. It wasn't a particularly large city by any means, but there wasn't a soul in the God realm who would dare to not know about it. Sitting directly beneath was a vast and seemingly borderless star realm. Once upon a time, it was called the Southern Sea God Realm. The Southern Sea God Realm was known as the greatest star realm of the Southern Divine region for almost 1,000,000 years. Now, though, it was only as superior as the shadow cast by Emperor Yun City itself. The smoke and ruins that befell the Southern Sea capital a while ago was long gone. Instead, it was covered by countless profound ships and even more profound practitioners. They were working to rebuild the former king realm of the Southern Divine region into a whole new star realm. Of course, most of the resources spent had come from the Southern Sea God realm's treasury. The project was overseen by the 2 Southern region king realms, the Xianxia realm and the Purple Micro realm. For obvious reasons, they were very motivated to see the project completed perfectly. The Xianxia God Emperor and Purple Micro God Emperor only wished that they could have performed the tasks themselves. The eye of the dimensional profound formation in Emperor Yun City was set at the back of Emperor Yun Palace. The very first place Yun Wuxin visited in the God realm was the most elevated place in the God realm, Emperor Yun City. Naturally, the elements and spirit energy of the place, countless times richer than they were on the Blue Pole Star, had suffocated and dizzied her instantly. Of course, Yun Qi easily dealt with her condition with just a casual wave of his hand. Emperor Yun City is not really a city. It is a profound arc from ancient times called the World Dragon City. Its creation actually has quite a lot to do with the World Piercer held by your Auntie Meiyan. It belonged to the Dragon God realm, but I took it for myself after defeating Long Bai. While holding his daughter's dainty hands, Yun Qi took her to every corner of Emperor Yun City while telling her everything there was to know about the God realm. The process was also meant to give her time to adapt to the laws and auras of the God realm. "This is the Silk Shadow Palace, the bedroom of your Auntie Kainying. This is the Color Sound Palace, the bedroom of your Auntie Meiyan. This is the Ice Phoenix Palace. This is the Rainbow Star Palace." Suddenly, Yun Wuxin interrupted. "What about Mom, Master, and me? Do we get a palace as well?" "Of course," Yun Qi said smilingly. They both blurred, and before Yun Wuxin knew it, she was staring at a palace adorned with all kinds of icy crystals and dreamlike corals. "This is the graceful Dream Palace. I had collected these crystals and corals from the heavenly Netherfrost Lake of Snow Song realm myself. They will never melt unless they are burned with a divine flame. I hope that she will like it when I show it to her." Yun Wuxin's eyes curled into crescents. Amidst the fantastical array of reflected light, she thought she could see her father carefully setting down the items one by one and using some of them to make the word graceful dream. Too, a beautiful smile crossed her lips without her noticing. "Mom will definitely love this. She might even forgive you for what you did." "But," Yun Wuxin abruptly changed her tune, "even if Mom forgives you, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to bully little aunt behind her back, understand?" Yun Qi. Hem. HMPH? Yun Wuxin snorted before lowering her voice to a whisper. "At least court her openly. Do you really think Mom doesn't know about?" What did you say?" "Nothing. You see that?" Yun Qi pointed at the image of a phoenix in the sky. The sky itself was dyed red by its radiance. That is where your master's palace is, the Phoenix Snow Palace. Your palace is in between Graceful Dream Palace and Phoenix Snow Palace. Yun Wuxin looked and whispered the name, Eternal Heart Palace. The three engraved words filled her with infinite warmth and strength. She knew immediately that her father had carved them with his own fingers. Why did you call it that? Yun Wuxin asked her father expectantly. Yun Qi smiled and moved his daughter's hand to his chest. Then he stared into her eyes and began. I have never been a good father, Wuxin. I've missed you for many years, worried you unduly, and broken my promises to you again and again. You even had to sacrifice your greatest talent for me. There are many things I cannot fix or redeem even after I've become the strongest person in the universe. But no matter what happens in the future, no matter when or where, no matter how high I've ascended or how long I've fallen, I want you to know that you will always occupy the most important place in my heart. Always. Yun Wuxin's gaze stilled for a moment. She stared into her father's eyes for one breath, two breaths, and then she lost control of herself and burst into laughter. Yun Qi tapped his nose in embarrassment. Was it that bad? I practiced it a lot of times in my mind, you know. It's not bad, it's just so old-fashioned. Even with one hand covering her lips, it was obvious that Yun Wuxin couldn't stop smiling. My father is the great emperor of the universe. You should be able to speak so profoundly that a normal person would never be able to say it. I'll do my best next time, Yun Qi promised, but it obviously lacked confidence. It's fine. Before Yun Qi knew it, Yun Wuxin was leaning against his shoulder with her eyes closed in contentment. It is enough. It is enough to last me a lifetime. Oh my, it looks like I've shown up at an inconvenient time. I didn't mean to disturb your precious father-daughter time. The speaker was none other than Kai Wao. She was followed by Jai Xin and Jai Ling. On a related note, the coolness in Jai Xin and Jai Ling's eyes had melted away immediately after they saw Yun Qi. They proceeded to bow their heads so they wouldn't be able to meet his eyes. On the night Yun Qi was crowned the great emperor of the God realm, he slept with the 9 witches. This was the first time Jai Xin and Jai Ling had met him since that day. Naturally, they felt shy and embarrassed in his presence. Auntie Wao, Yun Wuxin greeted and saluted Kai Wao politely. She held great respect toward the empress because she was, out of all the women her father had courted, easily the one with the greatest right to the first wife position, and the person her father depended on the most. Kai Wao smiled and nodded in return before facing toward Yun Qi. My emperor, are you aware that your city has nearly forgotten its own master's name? Yun Qi replied with a straight face. You don't need me to carry out your business. In fact, my presence could have made your work harder than it should have been. Kai Wao rolled her eyes at him before complaining to Yun Wuxin. You see that, Wuxin? In the future, be sure not to pick a man as shameless and irresponsible as your father to be your husband. Yun Wuxin giggled at that. She might be young and inexperienced, but she could sense the deep emotion behind Kai Wao's every complaint. It was a love so deep that even an outsider could be moved by it. No wonder her father was the most envied man in the entire universe. It so happens that Kang Shishin is showing up today to report about the latest rebellions and matters regarding the Enforcer Bureau. I suppose it's about time I overstep my authority and leave the work in your rightful hands. Yun Qi subconsciously raised a hand to say no, but he quickly lowered it and nodded. Yes, send Kang Shishin to meet me. He had been Emperor Yun for almost half a year already. He really should begin carrying his own weight. The palace bedrooms were devoid of presences because no one was allowed to approach them. When they approached the main hall, though, a vast, heavy, and icy pressure immediately pressed down on all of them. The guards chosen to protect Emperor Yun's city and guard Emperor Yun himself were naturally powerful. For example, the lowest bar of acceptance was Divine Sovereign Realm. A Divine Master was also posted every 10,000 steps in every direction. The combined aura of these experts alone would keep most people from taking even half a step in Emperor Yun City's direction. Yun Wuxin was only in the Divine Origin realm. She immediately felt like 10,000 mountains were pressing against her person. She stopped in her tracks and gritted her teeth tightly. She began shaking like a leaf as icy fear threatened to buckle her knees, shred her body, destroy her beliefs, and engrave the essence of submission onto her core. Yun Qi summoned a bit of profound energy between his fingers, but he didn't dispel the pressure for Yun Wuxin. Instead, he injected it into her soul and fought against the pressure alongside her. This was his Emperor Yun City, and she was his daughter. She should be able to adapt and conquer this pressure with her own body and will. Yun Wuxin gritted her teeth harder and harder. Pain kept flashing across her beautiful features. However, her mind and soul never succumbed, her posture never bent for even a second, and her knees never buckled to the pressure. Not even when Yun Qi withdrew his palm and left her to fight on her own. For an entire hour, Yun Wuxin fought unceasingly against the pressure. She probably felt that it was much longer than that. She succeeded. At the end of her struggles, her body stopped shivering completely, and she opened her eyes to reveal more determination than fear. "I'm fine now, father." As expected of our little princess, Kai Weiao praised from the bottom of her heart. It wasn't perfect, but the fact that Yun Wuxin managed to regain control of herself in just an hour was very impressive. At this rate, this level of spiritual pressure would be like air to her in half a year at most. It would be a great advantage when she faced off against powerful enemies in the future. After all, her enemy's starting point would just be a king realm at best, but hers would be Emperor Yun City. It would be a gap as great as heaven and earth themselves. 1, shit really is that big. 2, Dream Cicada would have sounded way better. The front of the main hall was brimming with heavenly aura. Every guard stationed in this area was a towering presence that could cower even a realm king to submission. For a second, space itself froze when Yun Qi stepped into the main hall. Rumble, then every person within sight dropped to one knee and saluted Yun Qi. "Welcome back, your majesty. He who grasps the heavens with his bare hands and unites the 4 divine regions. May his power be unrivaled, his domination be unending, his rule to hold strong for eons and his memory to last forevermore." The air shook, and heaven and earth themselves trembled before their cry. However, Yun Wuxin's reaction toward the paean was nervousness, shock, and second-hand embarrassment. Yun Qi shot his daughter a glance before lowering his voice. "Weiao, who the heck is the one who made this paean?" "I did, of course," Kai Weiao replied. "Is it not to your fancy?" At number percent, Kai Weiao was without a doubt the shrewdest and scariest woman he ever met. However, the paean she wrote was so embarrassing that he felt like something was crawling on his scalp even now. To give a comparison, he felt as if he had gone from great emperor of the god realm all the way down to a clown. To think that she would have a weak point like this. "It's not that I dislike it," Yun Qi chose his words carefully. "I just think that this is the kind of stuff a mortal emperor would enjoy, not us. I see, I understand." Kai Weiao dipped her head a little at the same time she groaned in her mind. Was it really that bad? It was at this moment everyone felt an aura speed toward the main hall. It belonged to none other than Kang Shishan. The second he sensed Yun Qi's presence, he immediately withdrew his profound energy and imperial aura to a harmless degree. His posture was already half bent into a bow before his feet could touch the floor. Thump. Finally, Kang Shishan sank to his knees and declared, "Kang Shishan greets the great emperor and the empress, he who grasps the heavens with his bare hands and unites the 4 divine regions. May his power be unrivaled, his domination be—" "That's enough." Yun Qi's scalp was tingling again. "Huh!" Caught off guard, Kang Shishan looked up and saw something unexpected. It was a nervous-looking Yun Wuxin clinging to Yun Qi's left arm tight enough to break bones. The fact that Emperor Yun had brought this woman to the first court he held since months spoke volumes about their relationship. That they were acting cozy right in front of the Empress spoke even more. Not one to miss an obvious hint, Kang Shishan immediately bowed again before crying, "Congratulations to Emperor Yun for finding another concubine. She is as pretty as a sculpture by heaven's hands, as dignified as a fairy, and a perfect match with—" "She is my daughter," Yun Qi cut him off coldly. Kang Shishan's paean died in his throat. Then he slapped his own face with everything he had before prostrating himself completely before Yun Qi. He spoke in a trembling voice. "I have committed a grave offense. I ask your majesty and your highness to hand out my punishment." "HMPH?" Yun Qi stepped forward with a cold look in his eyes. "Kang Shishan, you and I both know what a capable man you are, and it has been months since I traveled to the lower realms to accompany my wives and daughter. Are you really telling me that you have no idea about their existence at all?" "Your majesty," Kang Shishan looked fearful, but his eyes spoke otherwise and with surprising honesty. "I pride myself on being your keenest mad dog. For your majesty, I will gladly fondle even the darkest and filthiest secrets of them all. However, the opposite is equally true. What your majesty doesn't wish for others to know, I will never know even if I am equipped with 1,000 times the ability and 1,000,000 times the courage. And I most certainly will not allow others to know about it." Kang Shishan had almost shouted his declaration. Forget Yun Qi and Kai Weiao, even the guards stationed outside the hall could hear him clearly. Kang Shishin had to be the first King Realm God Emperor ever to walk over himself so thoroughly to show his loyalty. Even Yun Wuxin could only stare at him in utter shock. Yun Qi shot Kang Shishin a long look before turning away. "Come, we will speak inside." Nearly every palace in Emperor Yun City possessed an independent space of their own, meaning that they were much larger than they appeared on the outside. This was especially true for the heart of the city, the Great Hall. Right now, Yun Qi was sitting on his throne, the seat of power that represented the highest authority in the entire primal chaos, and listening quietly to Kang Shishin's reports in the Great Hall. Just like Kai Weiao had informed him earlier, Kang Shishin spoke mostly about the recent, important happenings of the three divine regions and the progress of the Enforcer Bureau. He had resolved himself to perform his responsibilities. If he were to be honest with himself, he was extremely uncomfortable with serious scenes like this. In the past 100 days, there have been 1923 rebellion cases in total across all three divine regions. Half of them occurred in the Western Divine Region, 35% in the Eastern Divine Region, and 15% in the Southern Divine Region. If I were to categorize them by scale, 1921 of them were small-scale rebellions, and only 2 were big-scale rebellions. They were all quelled within 6 days. In descending order, the strongest rebel was 1 divine sovereign, 13 divine kings, 101 divine spirits, and the rest were below divine spirit realm. The numbers were much smaller than Yun Qi had anticipated, but ultimately unsurprising. There was no such thing as a perfectly smooth transition to a new regime, much less an era. Moreover, the three divine regions' prejudice toward darkness in general had been cultivated for literally 1,000,000 years. It was only natural that someone would remain firm in their beliefs and fight to the bitter end. However, the strongest powers in the universe had already submitted to Yun Qi's rule. These rebellions could be 1,000 times greater, and they still wouldn't be able to threaten him one bit. Moreover, the stronger a profound practitioner, and the higher they stood in the world, the more they would realize just how stupid it was to even try to defy Yun Qi's momentum. It was why the strongest profound practitioners who participated in the past 100 days of rebellions were only 1 divine sovereign and 13 divine kings. "How do you plan to deal with these people?" Yun Qi asked. Kang Shishin replied, "I plan to obey the Empress Wisdom. She has commanded that I exterminate 90% of the culprits and their 3 families, cripple the remaining 10%, and pardon between 10 to 100 of them." When he then added, "Besides that, we have also taken control of the clans and sects that don't fall under the 3 families that are set to be exterminated, but are still linked to them. It is the same for those who were crippled or pardoned. We are absolutely certain that not a single person has slipped past our notice. On that note, are there any changes you wish for me to make, Your Majesty?" "It is fine," Yun Qi replied. "You may simply obey the Empress Wisdom." Beside Yun Qi, Yun Wuxin couldn't help but stick out her tongue in secret. She was understanding more and more just how much responsibility her Auntie Weiao was saddled with. Her title might be Empress, but she was carrying out all the responsibilities of the great Emperor. "I am unsurprised that the majority of the rebellions have occurred in the Western Divine Region. However, I am surprised that the rebellions in the Southern Divine Region don't even exceed 20%. Yun Qi scrunched his eyebrows into an ominous frown. "Are you sure the numbers are correct?" Kang Shishin replied immediately and without hesitation. "Your Majesty is wise. I may be native to the Southern Divine Region, but I pride myself on being able to serve Your Majesty. I would never dare to obfuscate the truth on behalf of the Southern Divine Region." "Your Majesty, the Eastern Divine Region is the one that suffered the most lives lost during your overturning of the previous order. Therefore, a small half of the Eastern Region rebels were motivated by their desire to take revenge for their sects or their families. However, back when my apologies, back when Consort Grace was still unmarried, she already knew everything there was to know regarding the Southern Divine Region. Today, all the information she collected has been woven into a great web that spans across every star realm in the Southern Divine Region. As a result, most of the rebellions were destroyed before they ever had the chance to take form. That is why there is little to no rebellion to speak of in the Southern Divine Region." Yun Qi asked. "Kang Xiu is that capable even when she was unable to take a step beyond her abode?" Kang Shishin dipped his head slightly. Consort Grace had meant to gift Shishin the web she spent thousands of years to weave. Now, it has been put to use for Your Majesty. If If you have the time, I humbly request that your majesty to get to know Consort Grace better. I promise that she will not bring shame to the title you have granted her. Is there anything else? Xianxia asked. No, your majesty, my report is complete. Xianxia rose to his feet and declared, if there is nothing else, then you may take your leave. As you command. After Kang Shishan was gone, Kai Weiao finally broke her silence and said, what a perfect dog he is. It would be truly saddening if he were to suddenly disappear one day. I got it already, Xianxia replied helplessly. I will find time to visit the deep sea realm. That would be best. Kai Weiao walked up to Xianxia before continuing. By the way, there is something that I would like to speak with you about. Just give it to me straight. Knowing her, the more formal she acted, the less serious the matter she wanted to discuss was. Kai Weiao's lips curled into a half-smile as she began. Emperor Yun City is blessed with divine power and countless palaces, but the large majority of them are empty and unused. Don't you think that it looks a bit lonely? The construction of the Emperor Yun God Realm, that is the former Southern Sea God Realm, is progressing smoothly. When it reaches completion, the core alone will span 50,000 kilometers. The entire region will be your private domain. Thousands of temporary imperial residences have been built across all 4 divine regions as well. All this is fine and well, but there is one thing that desperately needs you to personally remedy, and that is your harem. As the first great emperor of the primal chaos, your consorts and your attendants combined don't even exceed 24. Meanwhile, a lower realm king easily has 3,000 concubines in his harem. Xianxia. Yun Wuxin. Kai Weiao continued, the failure is of course my responsibility. I don't fear the backbiting of mortal men, but the stain on your majesty's dignity cannot be allowed. Stop. Stop. Xianxia hurriedly raised his hands to stop Kai Weiao. After shooting Yun Wuxin a guilty look, he replied, we'll talk about this later. Even before his coronation, Kai Weiao had complained to him that his small harem was unbefitting his status. Since then, similar conversations had happened enough times that he almost dreaded the thought of seeing her again. The worst part was that she was completely serious about it. The fact that she pushed the 9 witches, that she had spent unimaginable effort to raise, into his bed during the night of his coronation was proof of that. If there is a later, that must mean that your majesty does not reject the idea. That is good. Kai Weiao's frown lessened a little, and her eyes twinkled like rippling water. For the past few months, I have ordered the men to select 9,000 women of excellent background, talent, and appearance. When you are free, simply, ahem. Xianxia turned his back on Yun Wuxin and winked at Kai Weiao desperately. We'll talk about this later. Seriousness aside, she was absolutely doing this to him on purpose. She was probably punishing him for fooling around his home planet and neglecting his duties for too long. It was at this moment Yun Wuxin asked weakly, Should I head out and explore on my own, Father Auntie Weiao? Xianxia hurriedly caught her hand and said, No, the aura of the God realm and the lower realms is too different. I'll take you wherever you wish to go. Do not stray too far away from me. This was the first time Yun Wuxin had visited the God realm. There was no way he was going to leave her to her own devices without good reason. Very well, we shall talk about this later. It sounded like Kai Weiao was letting him off the hook, but she added, However, there is one other thing that I require your assistance with, your majesty. Xianxia watched her warily. Kai Weiao continued, Our dark, profound practitioners need your eternal calamity of darkness to adjust their compatibility and be able to leave the northern divine region freely. This is one task I cannot complete on your behalf, so if you may. Xianxia hid a sigh of relief before nodding. I haven't forgotten about that. 2 months from now, I shall travel to the northern divine region and grant my blessing. Moreover, I promise to rally the northern region profound practitioners and adjust their compatibility every decade. Very well, I shall inform my people to make the necessary preparations. Oh, right, Xianxia said suddenly. How did that matter I discussed with you go? Oh, that, Kai Weiao paused for a second before smiling. I wouldn't be so lazy as to neglect a personal request you've made to me. If you are free, you can head over now and have a look yourself. He never worried that Kai Weiao might mess up something. It was because she never failed to exceed his expectations. He hesitated only for a short moment before passing his daughter to Kai Weiao. Wuxin, keep Auntie Weiao company for a bit, will you? I'll be back very soon. 1. City behind and flew toward the north alone. Where are you going, master? He Ling couldn't help her curiosity. Since her life became one with Xianxia's, their experiences became shared as well. There shouldn't be anything about Xianxia that she didn't know, and yet she couldn't recall him asking a special favor from Kai Weiao at all. Patience, it's not too far away from here. His reply only made her more curious and mystified. It wasn't long before a small star realm entered their vision. He Ling thought that they would fly over the star realm, but he flew straight toward it. This is your destination, Mast? Ah! He Ling's puzzled tone abruptly turned into a cry of shock. This aura, no, these auras are. Her voice grew increasingly soft and agitated. Xianxia sped up, and the distant star realm grew bigger at a much faster pace. Eventually, his senses became fully attuned to the vast world before his eyes. It was a planet covered in emerald green. Even from a distance, he could feel an impossibly pure aura washing over his person, expelling the darkness in his heart and cleansing the impurities of his soul. He came to a stop above the star realm and looked. Emerald wood, new bamboo, and blue grass connected heaven and earth. Between them were countless other plants and flowers. The sky of this planet was unusually high, and it merged seamlessly with the blue sea below. The clouds were pure white, and the breeze seemed to ignore physical boundaries and seep into one's very soul. This planet would seem like a forgotten paradise to those who were used to a world polluted by sin, strife, and desire. He Ling manifested beside Xianxia. For a long time, she simply stared at the world below her with increasingly blurry eyes. Sis, don't fly so fast, sis. I can't keep up with you. Ah, the childish voice that ended in a cry of surprise belonged to a boy. He wobbled unsteadily as he crash-landed into the bamboo forest below him. The girl he was chasing after stopped in her tracks before flying to where the young boy had fallen. Placing her hands on her hips, she said, "You're so useless, little E. I could have flown all the way to Penannular Emerald Peak when I was your age. If this was in the past, HMPH, you would be the first to be captured by a bad person." Both the boy and the girl had dark green hair, greenish-blue pupils, and sharp ears. Their aura was so pure that it was like an unreserved gift from Mother Nature herself. Anyone who saw them would know that they were juvenile wood spirits. The boy climbed to his feet and said smilingly, "We're not in the past, though. Now that Emperor Yun is protecting us, no bad person will ever dare to bully us again." The two children were currently in a vast wilderness. If this was in the past, they would never be allowed to come here without adult supervision. Even with adult supervision, they would be spending every waking hour hiding themselves from view. When they awoke from their slumber, they would occasionally find one or more of their kin had vanished for eternity. Those days had been the nightmares of nightmares. "That's why we should be more alert than ever." The girl blinked round, emerald eyes at her younger brother, and said in a serious voice that she had obviously copied from an adult. "One of our clan's ironclad principles is to always return the favors we owe. We must never forget the one who gave us the land beneath our feet and the peace we currently enjoy. If we don't become stronger now, how can we possibly repay Emperor Yun's favor in the future?" The girl had led a fugitive's life since the moment she was born. She was only a dozen or so years old, but she had already moved countless times, survived countless tragedies, and even witnessed them right before her very eyes. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she had lived in terror her whole life, until Xianxia had overturned the previous order. Today, not only had Emperor Yun, sovereign of the 4 divine regions, enacted the harshest wood spirit protection law ever in the history of the God realm, he even purified and modified an entire star realm for the wood spirit race. Moreover, they were protected 24/7 by the enforcers stationed all around the star realm. Without the Enforcer Bureau's permission, no one could even get close to it. They no longer had to live in fear and drift from place to place. They wouldn't ever have to return to that dreadful past. To the wood spirits, this outcome was something they didn't even dare to dream of. That it actually became a reality was, they didn't know how to begin to return Emperor Yun's favor. The girl's speech caused the boy to fall silent for a moment. Then he clenched his teeth and struggled to his feet. He declared with boyish determination, "Sister is right. We won't be able to repay Emperor Yun's favor if we don't become stronger." The girl nodded once before saying in a soft tone, "There was a wood spirit in the projection when Emperor Yun was attacking the eternal heaven realm, and Grandpa said that she might very well be a princess of the royal family. She may even be watching over us from somewhere right now. This is also why we must grow stronger. We must return Emperor Yun's favor, and we must not disappoint the princess." The girl wasn't just encouraging her younger brother. She was also encouraging herself. He Ling's tears had turned into a cascade at this point. Xianxia said softly, "The God realm is huge, but it will never be big enough to satisfy a person's desire. I could have made the ban 10 times stricter, and it still wouldn't be enough to protect the wood spirits completely. After I killed Long Bai and determined Emperor Yun City's location, I asked Wao to mobilize the major star realms, rally the wood spirits scattered across all the divine regions, and purify this small star realm for them. Obviously, I named it the Wood Spirit Realm." He Ling's lips moved, but no sound came out. This star realm was an auxiliary star realm of the Southern Sea God realm. It's pretty small, but it is overflowing with pure spirit energy because they used to nurture their spirit herbs and plants here. It is less than 2 hours away from the Southern Sea God realm, so you can visit them anytime you want. In case of emergencies, our forces will also be able to come to their aid immediately. Below them, the sister and brother had already departed the bamboo forest together. In the distance, they could also sense countless wood spirits going about their business and releasing their pure aura freely. They no longer had to strain their nerves, conceal their heartbeats, and do everything in their power to stay hidden. They no longer had to fear ever again. The 3 divine regions have been made aware of the wood spirit realm. The major star realms have also spread the word that wood spirits looking to move to wood spirit realm can simply seek out the nearest enforcer bureau and be escorted there by the enforcers. He looked at He Ling and touched her dancing hair. "Not much time has passed, so this is all I can do for the moment. You won't have to wait long, though. One day, the wood spirits will no longer need to shelter within the wood spirit realm. They'll be able to come and go whenever they like and travel to wherever it is they wish to go. They will only be loved, cared for, and respected. They won't need to worry about being harmed ever again." 1. The world owed the wood spirit race too much. He owed the wood spirit race too much. He Ling finally removed her gaze from the dreamlike world beneath her feet and stared at Xianxia. Tears refracting the emerald light in her pupils, she said, "Master, I—" Suddenly, Xianxia put a finger to her soft lips and said, "Come now. There is no need for thanks between you and I also," he continued after a pause. "It is nothing compared to your and He Lin's sacrifices, truly." He Lin and He Ling were the ones who gave everything the wood spirit race had today. Not him. He Ling stopped talking and watched him in silence. "Do you want to meet them?" Xianxia wiped away the tear stains on her cheeks. "I'm sure they will be glad to meet their royal princess." To know that the royal bloodline is still alive too, however, He Ling slowly shook her head. "I'm not the princess of the wood spirit race anymore," she murmured while staring into Xianxia's eyes. "My family is avenged, and the wood spirit race is protected and at peace. I no longer have any regrets left in this life. From now on, I am only your He Ling." "No," Xianxia smiled. "You belong to yourself. No one, not even I, have the right to claim your freedom against your will. Does that mean there will be a day you don't want me?" He Ling's teary eyes trembled piteously. "What are you saying?" Xianxia pinched her cheek lightly. "You don't actually believe me, do you? I'm a selfish and domineering man. I will literally tie you to my person if you dare to even think about leaving my side." He Ling bloomed into a beautiful smile and leaned on his chest. She held him as tightly as she could and whispered with firm determination, "I will never leave you, master. Never." Up arrow flag warning. Another half a year passed by. It had only been a year since Xianxia was crowned Great Emperor of the God Realm, but his reign had solidified to an astonishing level. One word from Emperor Yun could mobilize every king realm in the universe to action. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was their new heaven. The rebellions still happened from time to time, but the numbers dropped drastically each month. Progress was being made regarding the communication between the Northern Divine Region and the 3 Divine Regions as well. On his daughter's 21st birthday, Xianxia officially took Yun Wuxin on a tour across the entire God realm. It was what he promised to be her birthday gift. Xianxia had started his journey to godhood from the Eastern Divine Region, but Yun Wuxi had started hers from the Southern Divine Region because it was the closest. They would then travel to the Western Divine Region next, and the Eastern Divine Region later. They would be stopping by the God realm of Absolute Beginning as well. Finally, he would take her to the lower realms of the Eastern Divine Region. They would also explore the star realms surrounding Blue Pole Star's former location. The vast universe, the mysterious star realms, the strange races, the magical views, ancient or modern ruins, strange but naturally occurring phenomena, pocket worlds. Yun Wuxin's world was quickly flipped upside down not long after her journey began. She just recognized that everything she knew was but a drop in the ocean that was the primal chaos. Lower star realms, middle star realms, upper star realms. They visited each plane to learn about their unique lifestyles and perspectives. What was an unreachable goal for a denizen for one plane was just the starting point for another plane. Yun Wuxin was shown the differences between worlds again and again and again. Yun Qi hadn't bothered to hide his tracks or his aura. Every time he was recognized, profound practitioners of all levels would grovel at their feet and display the utmost fear and respect. It also made Yun Wuxin realize just how high her father stood in this incredible world called the God Realm. 1. T/N, wonderful in theory, horrific, yes, horrific in practice. 2. T/N, unless you can't make her a baby even after she dies of old age, which is a very real possibility because it's you. Why are you resisting the enforcers? Emperor Yun is the savior of the universe, and the enforcers are directly subordinate to Emperor Yun himself. Only they can enforce a region's order and protect a realm's peace. You are the ones who are confused and brainwashed by Emperor Yun. He is a devil person, the vilest of them all. He has killed so many people, massacred so many star realms, and exterminated so many clans for the sake of revenge. And now he's creating these so-called enforcers to control the rest of us. Are you seriously going to defend a tyrant? Exactly. All these disasters only happened because Emperor Yun was dealt the worst betrayal imaginable in the universe. Did you not see how ugly those king realms he destroyed truly were? Are you going to deny the fact that he saved the primal chaos? So you're saying that he can kill innocents because it's part of his revenge. He can kill whoever he wants because he saved the universe. There are many star realms who strongly rejected the enforcers at the beginning, but can you name even one who hasn't submitted to their rule yet? You're the one who's being stubborn here. If you're really so righteous, then I dare you to repeat everything you just said before an enforcer. I dare not, but I am righteous. No matter how powerful Emperor Yun becomes, I will never allow him to distort my beliefs. There exists karma and retribution in this world. One day, a hero will slay the leader of the devil people and free the 3 divine regions from their filthy darkness. When that day comes, all of you will be judged as sinners. This fierce argument had happened between 2 disciples of the same sect. It had taken place in a middle star realm on the edge of the southern divine region. This wasn't the first time Yun Wuxin had witnessed something like this. Her father had a lot of supporters, worshippers, and reverers, but the opposite was equally true. This time, something about the disciples' argument triggered her and caused her to clench her teeth in anger. How dare he curse my father? What a vile person! Yun Qi simply smiled and asked her, You've experienced many things in your journey already, Wuxin. By this world's standards, do you think I'm a good or bad person? Yun Wuxin replied without thinking, Of course you're a good person. If it wasn't for you, this universe would have turned into a true hell. All these people who call you a monster are just rotten, pretentious hypocrites who love to lord over others with their faulty logic. If they went through everything you did, they would have done much worse. HMPH. Still fuming, she glared at the disciple who cursed her father to be slain by a hero and said, If it was me, I would press his face into the ground for a wash for 10 days and nights. Ha 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 ha. Yun Qi couldn't help but laugh at Yun Wuxin's utter inability to be ruthless. Aren't you angry at all, father? Asked Yun Wuxin while puffing out her cheeks. Angry? With him? Yun Qi shook his head wryly. If I were to appear before him right here and now, his knees would buckle, his so-called beliefs would evaporate into nothing, and he might even soil his pants out of sheer terror. If I wished for him to die, I wouldn't even need to raise a hand or say a word. He could be the sect master's own son, and his sect would still kill him before groveling at my feet for forgiveness. I would be quite the unsightly great emperor if I allowed such a man to affect me in any way. As Yun Wuxin listened to her father's reply, her anger slowly gave way to thoughtfulness. Free speech is free, but it takes real qualifications to assess anything. Yun Qi continued, There is no such thing as absolute good or evil in this world. They are what they are because someone defined them, and in this universe, there is only one person who can define me as good or evil. Yun Wuxin waited patiently and curiously for her father to continue. Myself, Yun Qi declared calmly and evenly. If you call yourself good, then you are good. If you call yourself bad, then you are bad. Yun Wuxin clarified. Correct. Yun Qi inclined his head. And that's because, Yun Wuxin thought for a moment before answering haltingly but understandingly, you are the highest authority of them all. You are the victor who defeated everyone and everything. Amen. Yun Qi nodded again. When the Dragon God realm was still the sovereign realm, the Dragon Monarch's order was the mandate of heaven. The Dragon God realm's will was the will of heaven itself. All of the God realm revered, yearned for, worshipped, and praised them for who they were. But today, the Dragon God realm is known as the sinned Dragon realm. Thanks to your anti-Wyo machinations, the once untouchable Dragon Monarch and Dragon Gods are reviled and looked down upon, and the crippled descendants of the Dragon Gods are treated with pity and indifference. You would think that this is an impossible transition, or at least one that will take a long time to accomplish, but the reality is that it happened in just a couple of years. Xianxia lifted his right hand. It was clean, white, and perfectly unblemished. It had also been a while since it was last stained by blood. In this world, no one has the right to define me as good or evil, but I have the right to define anyone in the world as anything. The strong control everything, and the weak don't even have the right to decide their own fate. It's no profound truth. It is just the most basic rule of survival no matter what world or plane a person hails from. Her father's words entered her ears and nestled inside her heart. When she looked at that disciple who so dared to criticize her father, she no longer felt even a shred of anger toward him. Do you want me to work harder and become someone who can control their own fate, father? Someone who cannot be defined by others as good or evil? Yun Wuxin asked. No. But Xianxia shook his head and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You do not need to, for you are my daughter. If you wish to strive to become a powerful person, I will cheer for you and provide you with any help you need. If you simply want to become an ordinary person and lead a normal life, I will cheer for you all the same. Yun Wuxin. I have had enough pain, loss, terror, loss of control, and more to last many lifetimes. The reason I crawled to a peak I don't even like is because I want my loved ones to be able to choose freely and lead whatever life they wish to lead. If you want something, take it. If you dislike something, reject it. You may even choose to hesitate on something forevermore, for I am here to give you that choice forever. Yun Wuxin's lips parted slightly. A long time later, she said with a bit of mistiness in her eyes, Father, I'm going to be a bad girl if you keep coddling me like this. Ha 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 ha. If you want to become a bad girl, you may take some lessons from your Auntie Xianxia. Xianxia half-joked while guffawing. They arrived at another Middle Star realm with an excessive amount of lightning element in the air. As a result of the environment, most of the profound practitioners of this realm cultivated a lightning profound art. However, a couple of dark auras were surging beneath the unstable thunderclouds today. You are going too far, friends from the northern region. This mine may be small, but it has belonged to us Purple Profound clan for 300 years. Every sect and profound practitioners in this vast thunder domain can prove it. The old man in purple robes was fuming, but it was obvious that his words were restrained. He was accompanied by 100 or so profound practitioners wearing the same color. Standing on the opposite side were 13 men in black clothing and emanating a black, foggy aura. Although the Purple Profound clan profound practitioners vastly outnumbered the dark profound practitioners, the latter were all divine kings. There was no way the former could do anything against them. We broke our own rules to let you in because you are friends from the northern region. And Emperor Yun has decreed that all profound practitioners are to interact amiably with northern profound practitioners. However, nowhere in the decree is it stated that you are allowed to rob us blind for your own rapacious designs. Aren't you afraid that? Afraid? Afraid of what? The leader of the dark, profound practitioners interrupted the old man rudely before lifting his arm. While admiring the dark fog surrounding his palm, he said, Did you forget that Emperor Yun was the great devil master of the northern divine region before he was the great emperor? His protection is as eternal as darkness itself. On the other hand, you people are simply the losers of the war against the devil master and us. You've tormented us for 1,000,000 years, and now you want to live in peace with us after we've won. Could you accept this were you in our position? You can keep the mine, said the dark, profound practitioner to his leaders right arrogantly. Instead, you will submit 3,000 tons of purple crystals as tribute after the 13 of us have founded our sect here. This is our final offer. If you don't learn your place soon, there will be one less Purple Profound clan in this world. You! The purple-robed old man grew even more furious, and his facial muscles looked like they would tear themselves apart. However, the enemy was far too strong for them to overcome. He simply couldn't bear to take that last, irreversible step. Emperor Yun was formerly the Devil Master, and the Devil Master had risen to power from the northern divine region. Together, they had crushed the other 3 divine regions beneath their feet. There was no one who didn't know about this. Following that logic, it was perfectly natural for Emperor Yun to take the dark, profound practitioner's side and protect them. The purple-robed old man sucked in another deep breath to restrain his bursting anger. Don't forget that the sects of the great wilderness thunder domain are as one. If you rip us off, our allies will take action against you. Is that so? You can try. All the dark, profound practitioners snorted as if they had heard a joke. I can't believe everyone on this great wilderness thunder domain is as blind and stupid as you lot, though. You! The purple-robed old man was going to say something more when a middle-aged man behind him let out a pained sigh. That's enough, senior uncle. Just give them the mine so we can protect the sect. Emperor Yun rose to power because of the devil people. He himself is a devil person. How can he not defend his own kind? Sigh, master, a youngster interrupted in a small voice. Our clansmen have reported this to the newly established Enforcer Bureau. The enforcers may yet stop this. It's no use. The middle-aged man shook his head pessimistically. Their commander is also a dark, profound practitioner. Why else do you think these devil people are this fearless? Right as he finished his sentence, a shout that sounded like a thunderclap suddenly boomed through the air. Who dares to disobey the law within the jurisdiction of the Enforcer Bureau? The shout was imbued with the power of a divine sovereign. It shook everyone's heart and threatened to shatter their eardrums. They looked up. A dozen or so people were flying toward them at high speed, and the leader of the group had a chiseled face, fiendish eyes, wore a set of black clothes, and billowed a black aura that could only belong to a dark, profound practitioner. The man's name was Sikong Hanzhao, and he was the commander of the Enforcer Bureau and a divine sovereign of an upper star realm of the northern divine region. He had been tasked to command the Enforcer Bureau of this star realm.